Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto's had some secret training and is taking no shit from anyone. Part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. You fail. Uzumaki Naruto, orange-clad, blue-eyed, blonde and hopeful at becoming a genin for Konoha, shrugged and left the classroom. The two instructors looked at each other. You could have passed him, Iruka. I mean, they were clones. The silvery blue-haired Chunin stated, his fellow Chunin, with a scar on his nose, hung his head. You know I cannot show favoritism, Mizuki. It's more of will not and shall not rather than cannot. He will have to graduate next year. Naruto left the academy building alone, turned left, scaled the wall of the playground and headed towards the slums. The slums were where he lived. The orphanage had kicked him out when he was 6. The Hokage had set him up in a place in the red light district, mainly to protect him. Naruto kicked a stray bento box that had clattered into building. The door opened. A man stuck his head out. Get out of here, demon trash. Naruto looked at him with dead eyes and unsheathed a kunai. What did you call me? Naruto growled as he turned back around to climb the stairs towards the man. You heard, demon filth. A guttural laugh was heard from behind Naruto, who saw a tall man, garbed in black, joining the conversation. Kid, I know you want to kill him, but you have no defense. However, the man grabbed a kunai, grabbed the man and drove the kunai into the man's shoulder and into the door. Naruto stared. Won't he scream that I attacked him? The stranger snorted. He won't. Because he's not an absolute cunt. The reason why, he's breaking the Hokage's law in the village. A shinobi must follow the orders of their superiors unless it is an absolutely dick order, then you're looking at dismissal from the corps. I'll have your head, the man whimpered. Trying to be tough really doesn't have an effect when one is stabbed to the door. We'll see, Posh Spice. Who knows, I may be back to finish you. Come on, young Uzumaki, let's have a chat and get this god-awful weight off your chest. Naruto nodded and followed the man before stopping. How can I trust you? Good question, kid. What does the academy say? The stranger replied. Everyone in the village of Konoha is an ally and is obligated to assist one another. Naruto snorted derisively at that. You disagree? They treat me like shit. Prices are inflated for me. Everything I need is conveniently out of stock when I enter, so yes, I disagree. Then you're correct. You can't trust anyone. Don't trust anyone who says trust me. I'm telling you this, Uzumaki Naruto, because you can be great. Do not trust me. But know this, I am on your side. I know the corruption of Konoha. Naruto stared. You've been screwed by the council. Yup, kicked me out the house I was in by reneging on contracts. Separated me from my little girl Tenten. I had a hand in her family. I gave her to my genin teammates. One piece of advice, your genin cellmates you can trust. What you can trust them with is entirely up to you. I was lucky, I trusted them with everything. They even allow me partial visitation rights. Here we are. It was a smithy. The stranger led the duo in the back. To find someone waiting for them. This is where you've been holed up, Hari-kun. The stranger was small man, face covered with wrinkles showing his wisdom and age. Hari smirked. Where are the caretakers? A snort was given from one of the corners, getting a smirk. One in the corner, one on the sofa underneath a jinjutsu, one in the armchair, and the other. Hari lashed out directly above him, only to strike thin air. Behind you, Senpai. Hari grinned. Nico-san, been a while, hasn't it? Can't come and see your dear brother anymore. You stopped being my brother when you were dishonorably discharged from the corps. You should be dead. Oh, woe is me. Woe is me, my dear sister believes I should be dead. The mood changed as chakra filled the air. You and I both know that my dismissal is utter bullshit. Now why are you here, Hokage? No, I won't give him respect because the shinobi aid the Hokage and the Hokage aids his men. I asked him for assistance but never got any, so tell me your piece and please leave. The Sandaime stepped backward slightly and bowed deeply. I apologize. What do you want? My life. My protector. My vest. And 15 years of compensation at current interest rates. I do have 13 years of child services to pay, Higurashi's Hade and Ku needed. They'll deny it till they're blue in the face. The Sandaime nodded. What about your sword? You were the Hellsword of Konoha, an A rank shinobi average with an S rank in Kiri. Don't worry about the blade. We shall sing again. Now Naruto-kun, what is on your mind? Naruto sighed. Failed the genin graduation exam again. I passed a paper, Taijutsu, Shuriken Jutsu, Hangen Kawamari, but failed the Bunshin. You failed the Bunshin? As in the illusionary one? Naruto nodded. There are more. Kid, do you know who you really are? Growled Hari as he fixed the Hokage with a glare. The Anbu tensed. You're risking the law, Nai-san. Not stupid, Emoto-chan. Surprised you never told him who his mother is. Might bring him some closure and understanding. What are you talking about? Shouted Naruto, his patience finally running out. Uzumaki Naruto, you're the heir of the Uzumaki clan. Son of Uzumaki Kushina, the second jailer of the Kyuubi no Kitsune. Your father's name is restricted until you are 17 or Chunin. You've got a legacy, kid, as you're in Uzumaki. If people had done their jobs, you will never be able to do genjutsu or illusionary arts." Naruto stared. "You mean that?" Hari nodded. "Those that have the pretentiousness to call themselves your teachers are purposefully hindering you. The same people who forced me out of my apartment and into this rundown blacksmith, which I've managed to get working. You've got a choice, Naruto-kun. Be kicked to the ground by the academy because of what you are, or train with me, and I'll get you into the shinobi forces by hook, crook and death. I'll train with you, I'll become Hokage. I'll repay you somehow." Hari grinned. "I'll hold you to that. Don't rush to the position. In a race a tortoise beats the hare. Never be the hare. Experience the world, be stupid and have fun, and you better enjoy it because dark times are coming and you're going to need the memories of childhood before it kicks off." Naruto nodded. "When do we begin?" Next thing he knew, he was on the floor. "We've already begun. Time jumped to Chunin exams." Naruto smirked. He had used the transformation jutsu and the Kage Bunshin to sneak into the Jonin sensei meeting to overhear who would be teaching him and any other potential information. He was correct, Hada Kakashi would be his sensei, only to be deliberately neglected on the council's orders. The Sandaime had followed through on his promise and had Hari reinstated as a Takebetsu Jonin. Naruto's tutor grinned. It wasn't his full Jonin status, but a Jonin pay was a Jonin pay. His small blacksmith business was bellowing, pun not intended. The Anbu still used higurashis for the majority of their supplies, but they went to the small rundown blacksmith in the back alley because they knew that he knew that they knew, and add the Sandaime knew a few times and say repetitively that the blacksmith shinobi made tailor-made kit. Umur Horse was a shinobi who preferred wielding kunai with a longer blade and a reverse hand grip. Hari made him some. The blades were inscribed with some unique seals, elemental streaming seals, strengthening seals and sharpening seals. Elemental streaming allowed for the kunai to absorb incoming elemental attacks, but unfortunately it was first element connects. Strengthening seals allowed them to hold the man's weight. Yuma wasn't a heavy man per se, but he was big and was brilliant at scaling buildings, so the seals helped hold his weight, and durability seals allowed them to last longer in a knife fight. Nico got her katana infused with wind chakra seals. That was always fun to see when a man was cut in half, door and all. Hari also dabbled in the clothing business for spec ops. Naruto had quickly found himself liking the comfy, dark reinforced clothing that his tutor provided and had quickly bought several outfits. Sure, he had built a tab with his mentor, but through careful planning they had arranged a payment scheme. Naruto's skills had also improved. Upon learning the Kage Bunshin jutsu, Hari had quickly honed Naruto's taijutsu to a decent level. Kage Bunshins transferred memories, including muscle, back to the owner. Hari had also informed of a secret: Kage techniques could be applied to anything. For that, Hari launched a kunai at a target and a murmured Kage kunai bunshin no jutsu. The kunai became 50. Naruto's eyes widened at the potential room for abuse that particular technique had. Now here he was with a slip for the Chunin exams. "Senpai, are you home?" "Forge, Gaki. Wasn't expecting you for another 3 hours or so. What have you got for me?" "The last installment, I don't break my word. You know that." "Oh, and I got the Chunin exam slip." Hari emerged from the depths of the apartment that Naruto practically stayed in for food. Naruto only went back to his actual flat for sleep, which was 15 minutes away. Naruto had also put on several pounds and inches, what with Hari feeding him. "Dude, Gaki. Don't worry about not making it to the finals, it prepares you. Oh, and I've seen your seals and they're pretty good and inventive. Using some of them, I'm putting the funds into an account you can't access until you're a Jonin. Anyway, I've been chatting with the Hokage and he's given me these." But that Hari placed a longer than normal tanto on the table, along with a sheet of paper and several scrolls. "Hokage's Chunin tanto, out of regulation, out of service and illegal for anyone without a blade license to have. I have procured such a license and am to train you in its use and your affinity or affinities as much as possible before the exam." Naruto nodded and he funneled his chakra into the paper. Hari had tutored Naruto extensively in the academics needed to become a Chunin and a bit more, along with several other life skills one requires, such as woodwork, metalwork, cooking, cleaning, bare necessity food and the like. Naruto found the food Hari put in front of him was delicious because it was fresh. That was the main reason for eating ramen all the time. Not just because it was the only place that would serve him. Naruto's eyes widened when the paper shredded into pieces and then half the pieces caught fire and the rest soaked. "Not Earth Bollocks. Damn, could have taught you the schematics for something to really piss of Iowa." Hari despised the Earth Shinobi. He had been captured by them and had through sheer luck managed to gain parole and looked around the village. Hari had snuck into the library of the Iowa Nation and recorded several dozen techniques including the fabled Jinten or atomic style. Hari refused to share the details save for the Hokage witch and ensured the debates and arguments that had sent him into the slums where Naruto had found him. Wind release training involves making your chakra as thin as possible. You'll hear a shrieking sound. First exercise is to cut a leaf, then a rock, branch, tree and then a waterfall. Water is to manipulate spilt water, cup, bowl, pond, and river. Fire is quite simple, burn paper, wood, coal, branch and then a tree. Naruto nodded. I'd best get started and I hope to make you proud, senpai. But that Naruto left the smithy and headed towards the training grounds. You already have Namikaze, Naruto. You already have. This is set somewhere just after the apprenticeship begins and before Chunin exams. Izuki Hari grinned to himself as he pulled on his flak vest. The Hokage had come through for him, and for that Hari's faith in him was returned in the manner of should a shinobi need aid, and the Hokage provided. It irked him that it had taken the man so long to realize that assistance was needed, but he chalked it up to the civilians' dozen-year slander campaign against his apprentice. The Hokage himself had delivered the forehead protector, flak vest and his debit card for his bank accounts, and explained that he had bought the property Hari was living in and turned it into his name. Hari grinned and bowed deeply to the Hokage and pulled his vest on, leaving it open much like during his Jonin days the first time around. The Hokage grinned, he had one of his finest back. He had, through the use of an anbu, dropped a papercut in the Rusty Kunai, a pub that he had frequented during his shinobi days and first tenure as Hokage. Hari entered the pub and there at the table to the side, where he used to sit, was his dear twin Yuzuki Yuigao. Yuigao looked up and a grin crossed her face at the sight of her twin back in the flak, but she couldn't help but think about when she had disowned him. "May I join you, Ni-chan?" Hari asked, sitting down in front of her. "Nai-san, gomenasai. Gomenasai for not coming back to you when you dragged yourself back into Konoha after being captured by Wagakure no Sato. I'm sorry for not being by your side at the tribunal when you were denied the right to defend yourself against the elders and Danzo. I don't know how you feel about it, but would you mind please talking to me? What did you tell Iwa? How did you escape? Why did they keep you alive?" Hari grinned at her, told Iwa about the old Uchiha fortress that was built in Silk Country. "The one that's always abandoned." Yuigao nodded. "When captured and you need to give a location, tell them something on their borders which you know is highly likely to be abandoned." Yuigao nodded. She was eager to find out how her twin had escaped. Hari grinned. "Escaped, right? Well, they took me out into the exercise yard where they keep all the POW. Yes, Iwa kept prisoners of war, especially those with Kekkei Genkai, are extremely useful techniques. They had some Futon users from the mist, Yoten from the cloud, although that's more like rubber rather than actual lava like the mist. They also had 3 members of the swift release from Konoha, and finally they had some Suna Kekkei Genkai." She didn't talk much. "The 4 of us have bit the kunai and we began to formulate a plot to get out. I was fine with being the sacrificial lamb, as I was the only one without a Kekkei Genkai, and you know how the higher powers here are in court cases of Kekkei Genkais to none." Yuigao snorted. The bias and preference to the bloodline shinobi was all too apparent. "You all escaped, but how?" Hari shrugged. "Some would call it divine intervention, sheer dumb luck or something. Be grateful that I was the second shittiest country when it comes to Fuinjutsu, so the chakra drainage seals were really internal barrier seals, so don't ask me how they contain their Jinchuriki. Anyways, we overloaded the seals, killed the guards, and subsequently broke parole. They were expecting it, and thus we began dropping like flies as we began our escape. I got out the walls, but I took 3 kunai in the back, narrowly missing my spine, so I collapsed in the metal river which took me down river, over 4 waterfalls, until I was marooned sinking through the water in Hai no Kuni's northern samurai training camp. Fished out, patched up and sent on my way. Got picked up by Namikaze Minato tribunal 2 days later and 15 minutes and dishonorably discharged from the shinobi corps." Yuigao stared. "Just so you know, there are several laws around Uzumaki, Naruto." Hari snorted derisively. "I'm not stupid, Ni-chan. I'm just as observant as you. It's clear as fucking day who Naruto's fucking father is. It's quite frankly the worst kept secret since Weasel-san allegedly slept with the fire daimyo's 5th daughter." Yuigao inhaled her. "Sake wrong. Uchiha Itachi slept with the daimyo's daughter. So it was little Itachi. They grow up so fast. What happened to him? What happened to the Uchiha in general?" Hari responded, remembering he hadn't seen any of the Uchiha for a number of years. "They were wiped out to Sasuke, Itachi killed them," stated Yuigao, and Hari snorted. "Itachi was talented according to his father, according being the operative word. Everyone says their kid is talented, it's well-known bias. I believe you in the fact that the clan was wiped out, as the Hat himself told me. I don't believe Itachi did it alone, someone else assisted with the massacre. The Uchihas were what? 300 strong, and say 100 of them had the Sharingan fully matured and 20 or so had something above that. Add the fact it activates when life is on the line, so Itachi may have been able to kill at least 50 before going down. This is all depending on how old he was when he did it. I'll ask the Hat. Anyways, what have you been up to? Found anyone?" Yuigao blushed. "No, not found anyone." As she said that, images of Heiichiko flooded through her mind. Hari grinned. He could detect happiness directed at Heiichiko. Yuigao was good at deceiving people, but she couldn't hide everything from him and neither him from her. Anbu stuff. Anbu babysitting for Uzumaki Naruto. Hari grinned. Kakashi-san screwed up big time in his half year focusing solely on the Uchiha and Haruno. He was a veteran of exploiting loopholes, but he failed to see the loophole in giving Naruto decent instructions and left him to his own devices. But instead left him for me to train. Yugao turned to him. You trained Naruto-kun. What did you teach him? Hari smirked. Nothing that he didn't already know. Kage Bunshin, Taijuu Kage Bunshin, Kunai Shuriken Taijuu Kage Bunshin, Bunshin Daibakuha and basics of Kenjutsu and Kenten. Yugao steered Kenten. Hari grinned. Elemental sword jutsu. Kaiten and Futen most effective combative Kenten styles, that's why I stayed alive in Iowa. They wanted my Kaiten Kenten. Yugao nodded. Your fighting style you created for your Jonin exam, I forgot to ask what rank did you get? Akibetsu. Better than what I thought, but then again I had no idea what I was going to get, I just wanted to be back in the flak and core. But Naruto sat calmly against the wall finding and controlling his chakra nexus. It was an extremely advanced chakra control exercise that the Uzumaki clan normally practiced instead of the leaf forehead exercise. What are you doing, Baka? Exclaimed Sakura. Naruto opened a cold blue eye, trying not to kill you. Senpai says killing teammates is bad for business, though the teammate is interchangeable with dead weight and arrogance for you and Sasuke. Sakura bristled. At least Sasuke-kun has more jutsu at his disposal than you and can use them. Naruto snorted. But who's the one who can become everything, anything, anyone at any time or place? Plus which one of us is known to leave swimming pool craters in our wakes when you set off my traps? Sakura's fist balled. Naruto reached into his pocket and pulled out what looked like a civilian bicycle brake, flipped and clicked it, and it folded into a blade with his 4 fingers underneath the release guard mechanism. I really wouldn't. Besides, the proctors are watching, the proctors are everywhere. Sakura unclenched her fist and stalked off. Really necessary, Naruto? Ever since Kakashi more or less ditched you, you've become well badass and intolerant to your team. Care to explain? Asked Aburame Shino, approaching his fellow ostracized colleague. One was ostracized for unknown reasons and the other by choice, but together despite the look of acquaintances to the unseen eye the duo were relatively close friends. My team Shino is less of a team and more of meat shields for the precious Sharingan. We've survived without it, I hate them and they hate me, or is despise a better term. They won't stick their neck out for me, so I shouldn't, but I want to become Chunin. With it I should hopefully be able to move along my intended career path. Naruto said, pressing a small button on the left of the guard just above his thumb, and pressed the guard, causing the blade to compact itself again. By now most teams had assembled and the Konoha 12 were clustering around a purple-clad team called Kabuto, who was giving out information on all the main competitors' killers. Anything on Uzumaki Naruto? Kabuto's eyes flashed behind his glasses. Uzumaki Naruto, dead last, pathetic Bunshins, Kawamari potentially use it on another human being, Henge quite literally be anyone, so pretty decent for academics. Heritage is redacted. In fact most of the stuff I deal with is redacted. Mission ranking. 2 A ranks, 2 C ranks and 45 D ranks. One of those C ranks became an A rank, and guess what redaction on the other? Supposedly has a jutsu in the Forbidden Scroll, trained by Hada Kakashi and Kenten no Yuzuki Hari, a disgraced shinobi. A disgraced shinobi, yes. But a dishonorably disgraced one. Pal, watch your mouth. Growled Naruto, already protective of his sensei. Naruto knew that Hari-sensei knew more about him than he was letting on, but Naruto wasn't going to push as the man told him about his mother. With that small tidbit about his mother, clan and burden of being the container for the fox, he was content. What made him awesome was that Naruto didn't have to worry about food. He got up to intervene with his team and a team from the sound when the proctors entered the room. Alright maggots. Stand to attention and shut up. My name is Marino Ibiki and the Chunin exams have begun. Naruto grinned a fox-like smile as he worked his way through the 9 questions. Just before the Genin exams had begun, he had gone to the bathroom and created 50 reinforced shadow clones and had them transform into bugs and disperse them into the room at the exact same time as Aburame Shin, an unlucky Aburame Genin who made it to the last round last time around only to be trashed by Ingrass Shinobi. Shin looked at the flies and could detect 50 that weren't his. He smiled, a secretive grin that was concealed behind his grey high-collared shirt, which he wore beneath a dark green trench coat. Shino from Shippuden. The Genin had been allocated seats and he passed Naruto, discreetly placing a note in the boy's pocket, simply saying well done. On another note, the smoke had been considerably reduced when Naruto created his shadow clones. What would I have done if it wasn't for Hari-sensei? Oh yes, just panicked and tried to wing the last question. Thank you sensei for actually taking a chance. He thought as time clicked to the last 15 minutes. Over in the Jonin lounge, Hari, Yugao, Hei, Kakashi, Asuma and Kurenai were all either occupying the couches or the walls. The Yuzuki twins were taking it in turns glowering at Kakashi before Kurenai snapped, Yugao, you've been glowering at Kakashi-san ever since you and your brother have gotten here. I want answers. Yugao looked at her brother who nodded and turned to the young Jonin, you're a new Jonin ain't ya? My dear sister is giving filthy looks to Kakashi because he's broken his own rules and his sensei's wishes. I'm going to face my sensei's wrath, but that's because of Shimura Danzo, and because of what he's done to me he's going to die. Kurenai pulled a kunai on Hari and Kakashi, and Asuma had to fight smirks as Hari cocked his head. It's not treason if it's common knowledge. Danzo fucked up my shinobi career and consequently from grace, and my student on Kakashi's team is quite frankly my ticket to the top. Kurenai stared at him. Make some sense. What has Kakashi done? Who was his sensei? Hari cackled. His sensei was the Yondaime Hokage. My sensei was the Yondaime's wife. They're going to kill Kakashi for what he's done to their kid. Asuma and Kakashi's eyes hardened. You're playing with fire, Hari. You're risking the Sandaime's law. Hari let out a barking laugh as his eyes flashed. The Sandaime trusts me. We all know who the kid is because it's fucking obvious. Kakashi, you fucked up training only the Uchiha and the Banshee. Now Ibiki's going to pickle this lot and I hope your Banshee and Uchiha don't fuck up. You're saying that in the hope Naruto isn't he's the dead last. Said Kurenai, absolutely convinced in the numbers. Hari grinned. He trained under me for 8 hours a day on top of Kakashi's 5 hours. Kakashi and Asuma nodded. 5 hours was about right for new genin. But that Hari went into detail of what he taught Naruto. As for the teen himself, he was meditating and sending chakra pulses to his teammates with enough success that Ibiki wasn't going to penalize him, but enough to notice them. Well done. You have completed the first stage of the Chunin exams. Stated Ibiki after B had given them a massive monologue on why the exams were so important and revealing the scars beneath his headband. Naruto's eyes widened. This is a guy that his sensei could have been if he hadn't been so lucky. The window disintegrated, causing Genin to freeze. Naruto pulled out and released 3 kunai and grabbed his folding sword whilst forming a clone seal kunai Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Anko's eyes widened slightly but effortlessly deflected the kunai. Well done to the Gaki who launched that jutsu. Anyway, tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock bring all your kid, assemble at training ground 44. Naruto quickly evacuated the classroom with his team before vanishing in a Shushin no Jutsu or body flicker to appear Hari's forge. Hari was waiting for him and nodded as his apprentice appeared in a swirl of leaves. Decent control over that jutsu. It is another that once you've mastered will make you dangerous. I know I haven't given you any flashy jutsu or Sasuke-style jutsu, and I'll tell you why. Naruto sat down. His sensei explained why he did things to Naruto, taught him some things, but not others. I'm not teaching you elemental jutsu, because all the elemental jutsu I know have been incorporated into my own sword style for one. For two, the more chakra one has the longer it takes for their affinity to be revealed. You are the only one out of your class that does not know your affinity, but don't worry, I've trained you to avoid elemental jutsu. 3, your next sensei will train you with jutsu that I could never learn, and he'll kick my ass with one half his body, no sweat. Naruto stared. His sensei was known to be strong, and he had confidently said he could take Kakashi and Might Guy in straight up brawl spar, but that was before his fall from grace. These days he could hold against one at a time, but his old strength was coming back every day. Have you got a plan? Naruto nodded. Lots of clones. Clone henging to find the quickest path through the forest. Stealing and making replacements of our objectives and getting them before the test begins if possible. With that, Naruto set the table and joined Hari in finishing up in his forge and preparing dinner. The next morning dawned bright and early. Naruto prepped his kit thanks to a couple of tricks Hari had taught him. He had been able to slide a few days of emergency food into his kit pouches, along with a tinder box and some emergency blankets. He had restocked his kunai and shuriken and honed his 4 blades. His 2 spring blades and tantos were honed to sharpness, and he headed off to training ground 44. He arrived there just as Sasuke and Sakura turned up. Just over a month now before I can leave these behind. He thought to himself as he created several Kage Bunshins and shifted into several non-discrete animals. Their orders were to investigate the proctors and to give his team any advantage. It was roughly 10 to 9 if Naruto was reading the sun correctly, and the majority of the genin teams had assembled. Naruto stared down Aburame Shin and his 2 new teammates. Naruto couldn't but wonder what tricks the elder Aburame knew. Training under Hari sensei, he had been informed of all the clans and their skills or Kekkei Genkai. He had also learned that there were exceptions to every one of them. As far as he could tell, no one from Konoha, except for maybe aforementioned Aburame, no one was being an exception to their clan. His clone listened to the proctor talking about the second exam. The real Naruto had henged into mouse and scurried into the booth behind 2 Chunin. If they had been sensors they may have detected the transformed Naruto, but they didn't. Both assistant proctors left with arms full of scrolls bearing the kanji for heaven and earth. High above them, the Sandaime observed the genin through his crystal orb. He was joined by his shinobi council. Yamanaka and Oichi stared as Naruto peeled off his henge, snagged 3 pairs of scrolls. Henged back into a mouse and scurried into the forest. Hokage-sama. Yes. Did he just? Yes he did. Are you going? No. Shikaku-san. And Yuzuka Tsume grinned. He reminds of when Minato did something similar. The council snickered at that when Hyuga Hiashi, who didn't snigger as it was deemed inferior, had allowed a fond smile of his former teammate except in Yuzuka-san that he swapped some with scrolls made by one Uzumaki Kushina, which were rigged with blinding light and explosion tags. The gates opened and the genin rushed in. Sasuke and Sakura looked at Naruto, who was flagging, and suddenly burst into smoke. Cage Bunshin! Exclaimed Sakura and squealed in fright as Squirrel dropped in front of her and shifted back into his normal form. Let's go. Sakura and Sasuke could only stare as they bounded into the forest. Where were you, dope? Growled Sasuke as he looked at the heaven scroll they were given. Naruto grinned, doing the job. Our mission is to get an earth scroll if we had heaven and heaven if we had earth, yeah. Well, I've just done that. Sakura looked at him. We are meant to grab information from another team and take it to the tower. Naruto snorted. No, we are meant to get 2 packages to the tower. That is it. So Sakura, you wish to kill a few people, that's fine. But all that matters is that we have the scrolls needed. Sasuke was about make a demand when he landed on some wire, followed by the unmistakable sound of shuriken, and kunai came pelting through the air at them. Sasuke kawamaried, as did Sakura. Naruto smirked and vanished into a plume of smoke as 6 range genin charged into the clearing. Naruto struck first, after replacing himself with a squirrel bunch, and dropped down, releasing his blades, and drove both of them into the back of the head, and the blades erupted from the duo's mouths. With a crunch, squelch and a tear, Naruto ripped the blades free, cutting the heads roughly in half, before launching himself into a roundhouse kick which connected savagely with the now soul-surviving genin of Naruto's targets. What the under attack? Screamed the genin to his comrades. Unfortunately, his comrades were too busy falling back from a fireball that Sasuke had launched into the clearing. Son of a bitch. Snarled Naruto as he swiftly replaced himself with a corpse. The fireball didn't get any of the genin, but it did force the genin to bunch together. Another one died unceremoniously by running into Sakura's kunai. He ran into the kunai 10 times. Sakura screamed, attracting the surviving 3. Naruto rugby tackled one of them and formed a half-tiger seal, and Sakura gulped Bunshin Daibakuha. 2 of the genin had no chance as the clone revealed it had strapped several exploding tags to itself and then exploded as it was a detonating clone. Sasuke finished the last one with a very neat and precise neckbreaker. Sasuke, we really have to work on communication. Naruto groused as he retrieved an earth scroll, as did Sasuke. You were in the way. I'm an Uchiha and you are to work to my tune. I do not work to yours. The boy replied before turning to Naruto. What did you actually do whilst we were being briefed? Naruto grinned. What do we do as shinobi? Think about what this exam emphasizes and what the first exam did. He stopped talking when he felt a colossal chakra pressure emerge and it dwarfed his "we need to go now." Naruto grabbed Sakura because she was closest and jumped onto a branch as a snake effortlessly splintered the branches they had just been on. Come now, little genin, I only want to play a game. Naruto and the rest of Team 7 had never felt so outmatched and outclassed. The team were never going to work in the first place, and now here they were up against one of the most notorious shinobi in the world, who happened to be from their own village to be precise. Their opponent was Orochimaru no Densetsu-san, and Orochimaru of the legendary trio. Orochimaru smirked and licked his lips as he wove a rat seal fear of loneliness. This was one of his own illusions, or jinjutsu. It made the subject of the illusion that they were all alone, and with that he began to play with his prey. He stopped. One was the Jinchuriki of the village, incapacitate, reduce chakra available to him. A 5 elemental binding would do nicely. The Pinket, no one would miss her. Unfortunately, he needed Sasuke-kun in the finals, so a slow-acting poison would suffice. With his game plan intact, he decided, claim his prize first. A criminal, scientist and monster he would be. But one thing that he wasn't was that LF organized. He knew how strong a Sharingan was, even a maturing one. Fuinjutsu Bite of Darkness. The snake Sanin's neck extended and it clamped down on the Uchiha before anyone could contemplate what was happening. Naruto drew his blades and channeled his chakra into them. Orochimaru had to fight a quick look of surprise off his face at the advanced Chunin skill. Impressive, Naruto-kun, I know who you are, or rather what you are. Because of that I have to disable you. Orochimaru vanished with the speed of a cage. He learned via his spies that Naruto could outrun Chunin with ease, outsmart Jonin, so he needed to utterly crush the brat before the brat knew what hit him, or even worse, bring the fox out. He made one small miscalculation as he reappeared. He struck out with an open palm strike designed to drive the wind out of the diaphragm. Bunshin to bucket. Orochimaru's eyes widened as the clone detonated with the force of a roll of Jonin-class paper bombs. Naruto smirked as he caught the snake Sanin by surprise. Nice technique, Jinchuriki-kun. But not good enough. Naruto bent double as the strike slammed into his diaphragm, but he swung his left tento, encased in chakra, straight into Orochimaru's arm and inflicted a savage gauge. Not enough to remove the arm, but definitely enough for Naruto to throw several kunai. Orochimaru realized slightly too late what was on the end of the kunai and wrapped around their hilts paper bombs. Kunai to bucket Cage Bunshin no Jutsu. Orochimaru's eyes widened and a memory flashed from his subconscious. Naruto's fighting style reminded him of the Uzuki siblings. Yuzuki Yugao had trained under Uzumaki Kushina if he remembered correctly, and there was her brother. He couldn't remember who he trained under as a genin, but all he remembered of him was the fact that he had numerous misdemeanors against him for having above his level equipment, particularly paper bombs, explosive tags and numerous kunai and blades. He was also very skilled with Futen and Kaiten Kenjutsu. "Hell Yuzuki Hari," I said. "Hi. Gaju Fuen." Naruto couldn't dodge this, and he blacked out from the pain as the seal slammed into existence over his original one. Naruto blacked out and Orochimaru capitalized by grabbing him by the lapels and bodily threw the boy into the forest with his Sage Mode enhanced strength. He turned on Sakura and vanished in a sealess Shunshin and reappeared next to Sakura. The only trace of damage on Sakura was small indiscreet cut, but in it contained a deadly poison. Naruto slammed into a tree, cracking it, peeled off and landed on the forest floor with a thump. Below him, one of the 3 teams from Suna were passing by. "Gaara, Kankuro, go 3 kilometers north and wait 5 minutes for me," instructed the blonde. "Fine, 5 minutes only. Kankuro, come." Gaara rasped before levitating up on a cushion of sand, leaving Kankuro to scramble up the tree. Damari had heard the crash and decided to investigate, and she also needed the loo. Upon finishing her business, she found the crumpled Naruto and smirked a Konoha in, information for the plan and potential bait for the scrolls. Damari grabbed Naruto by the scruff of his jumper, grunting with effort, got him on her shoulder, and with some skill and effort, was bounding through the trees up to where her brothers and teammates were waiting. "Why have you brought this weakling?" "Because Kankuro, he's one of Konoha's. He may be able to give us information about potential weak spots." Kankuro stared at her, and Gaara nodded. Tendrils of sand rushed out of the gourd, wrapped around Naruto, and suddenly Gaara's eyes flashed in panic. Mother was trying to break free. "Let me feed on his blood. That boy is like us." Gaara focused his will and forced his demon spirit back with a mental conversation. "His blood will be better spilt in combat." Naruto stirred to find himself looking at the binds of sand and the 3 genin. "Who are you lot?" "I know you're from Suna." Naruto said, only for the sand binds to push him into the tree. "We ask the questions," growled the boy in black. Naruto looked at the 3 of them, and thanks to his tutoring, he knew who he was up against: a puppeteer, wind rider and a sand user. Only the Kazakiyages of Suna were known to use magnet styles, meaning the red head was related to the Kazakiyage. Their eyes widened. "Impressive for a genin to know that much about us." Naruto smirked. "My sensei's fought Sunin in and alongside. He doesn't know your jutsu, but he knows your specialisms. Now what do you want?" "Information on Konoha and your scrolls." Naruto grinned slightly. "You got the worst genin. I'm the dead last and thus I know nothing about Konoha's defenses, and as for my team's scroll, they're kinda destroyed. We just ran into Orochimaru." The Suna's team's eyes widened in fright. They knew of Orochimaru. You'd have to be under a rock not to. Naruto noticed that they knew something else. Naruto closed his eyes and through the layers of clothing he had detected a small microphone. Thankfully, when he had been slammed into the tree, he'd ridden the attack so that he didn't break the microphone. Anbu. Deep in the compound and playground, Konoha's dreaded guardians were running around. No, they were too dignified to run, rather moving at a brisk pace. They were the Anbu Black Ops. One of their training grounds was the Forest of Death, hence why they had microphones and cameras. "Nico. Where are the 3 squads of Jonin to be sent into the forest? Where's the runner that's supposed to notify the Hokage?" "The runner's message to the Hokage and our genin sensei is snake in trees." Nico stared at Panther in shock. She nodded and grabbed the nearest Anbu. "Inu, Hokage-sama, sensei's snake in trees. 3 hours ago." That set a fire under the Anbu's backsides. Nico was the second in command of the Anbu. She had never been snapped at during her time in the Anbu, and the rest knew that. Add the fact she had just casually handled Dog, a talented tracker from the Hyuga clan like a genin, spoke volumes about the situation. "Crab, alert the senseis. Crane, tell the Jonin. Crab, tell the message if Inu cracks. Also tell him I apologize for the handling but not. No need Nico Taicho. No need to tell Hokage-sama as he's here." Inu took a breath. "Hokage-sama's on the grounds. Look busy. If busy, carry on." At that moment, Inu followed by the Hokage entered the Anbu command. On principle, the Anbu either knelt or stood at attention as you were. "What are we doing about curing the snake?" 3 Anbu squads are moving in on Mitarashi Anko. Crab and Crane are either alerting the senseis and Jonin or the Shinobi Council. Not the elders if they ask. "Well, Crab's basic written and verbal responses will suffice," stated Nico. The Hokage smiled. Akimichi Atsuhasi Aka. Crab was a plain shinobi politically. His main ways of making his point across were with his titanic strength and Tetsubo or his Doten Jutsu, which he used in lieu of his Kekkei Genkai, which he struggled with. No one in the Akimichi clan minded about his lack of ability to manipulate the abundance of Yang chakra in his system. What he lacked in control of Yang, he made up for it with a Senju Tabarama skill over Doten. His file was littered with misdemeanors, he was known to only address a subject once and only going over it if the Sandame ordered it. If one of the council ordered or tried to, he simply stated didn't get the memo about the hat exchange. Or didn't get the memo. The Hokage grinned, dealing either with Crab and Naruto always made his day feel better. On some days were excellent because he had both of them to deal with. I wonder how many people will take offense to Crab today. Naruto and Sand. The Sand siblings looked at each other, they hadn't received much information out of their prisoner. They were about to finish him off when a loud voice screamed Leaf Whirlwind. Naruto passed out as he felt something crunch. The crunching sound was Naruto's ribs after they had been partially crushed by Gaara's sand. Naruto's chakra was already healing his wounds as he hit the floor. As he hit the floor, Naruto saw a green genin flash onto the scene, shortly followed by two others at a more sedate pace. "Ankuro, Tamari, leave him. We head to the tower," stated Gaara, and he turned to the green boy, "The one on the floor, he's strong as are you, your name?" The genin grinned, "My name is Rock Lee." He was about to carry on, but the sand team had vanished. Tenten dropped to the floor as Naruto was getting up. "I'm okay. I'm okay." Tenten looked at him. "You just got crushed by that kid, where's your team?" Naruto shrugged, "Being honest, I don't particularly care, but I need them anyway. I need to find them since we got separated by the sound team." Tenten nodded. "We encountered them. We still need to find a heaven scroll." Naruto nodded. "I can help with that. Providing my team aren't dead yet, I'll get you a scroll, or I'll give you one of my spares." Tenten stared at him. "How do you have spares? What do we do as shinobi? Lie, thieve, cheat, steal, assassinate, poison, seduce?" Tenten responded almost robotically, and Naruto grinned. "You've already said it." Tenten stared at him. "You stole some scrolls." Naruto nodded. "Correct." By now the pair scaled back up the tree. Tenten nodded. "Follow me." "Why are we helping him?" Tenten asked Lee. "If Naruto's memory served, I concur with Lee. Below us and payment has been arranged," Tenten said. Naruto forced his chakra into the seal underneath his forearm and out popped 3 items. 2 more flip swords and the required heaven scroll. Tenten catch. The bun-haired girl stared at him as they clattered towards a tree. Sitting in the hollow wielding one of his blades was Sakura. "Sakura!" shouted Naruto as he formed 6 clones which made their way across the clearing checking for traps. She looked up. "Is that you?" Naruto smirked. "I used to always ask you out for a date and you'd crack me over the head for no damn reason." Sakura snorted. "Because you are and always will be weaker than myself and Sasuke-kun." Naruto rolled his eyes. "Grab him and let's go." Sakura stared at him. "I'm in." Naruto groaned, jumped down and crossed the clearing himself. "I am not in the mood for moaning, whining and bitching. If we meet in the finals I will crush you. Now give Sasuke and get fucking moving." Naruto growled as he hoisted the Uchiha onto his back and he grabbed his blade off Sakura and they were off. Naruto ended up summoning a Kage Bunshin to grab Sakura as she evidently couldn't keep up with his blistering pace, which he was surprised that he was able to going at despite his new seal. Eventually the two teams made it to the tower and after watching a team from AIM that had miraculously survived the exam, got skewered on a brilliant ninja wire knife drop, did Naruto allow Sakura to guide them through. Or rather Sakura guided Sasuke through, but Naruto nearly got killed 3 times. All the more reason to break her, he told himself. The trio made it to the tower and Naruto deployed the scrolls, only to be met by Iruka, the proctor and 2 Anbu. "Uzumaki, Naruto, the council wished to see you." Naruto nodded. "What did you do, Baka?" Anko looked at Naruto. "This happened normally, Genin." Naruto nodded. "Usually worse. Punches are sometimes thrown. Which council wants to see me?" "I want Hari-sensei with me." "Not Kakashi, Naruto?" asked Iruka curiously, getting a bark of laughter from the young Jinchuriki which Iruka could only peg on Yuzuki Hari. "That man taught me nothing and yet Sakura and Sasuke got everything. I can trust Hari-sensei because he and I can't trust the elders." Anko nodded. "You're not alone in that. Anyway, Hokage awaits." Naruto nodded and he slowly molded his chakra, wincing as he did so, followed Anko and Ishunshin. The 4 of them materialized in the Hokage's quarters in the tower. Naruto staggered and almost tripped over his feet, only to be caught by Hari. "You should do better than that. Orochimaru, he was in the forest, did something to all of us," grunted Naruto, pulling off his clothing on his chest, revealing the twin seals. Hari's eyes widened as he observed the masterpiece of sealing that the boy's father had placed on him. "Looks like someone hit you with 5 elemental seal atop of your Uzumaki 8 trigram 32 Death God Reaper. I know seals, your mother did ingrain me with some knowledge of them, as well as the sharp end of his sword." Naruto snorted. "Can you undo this?" Hari shook his head. "Unfortunately, whoever did this is well out of my range." "Who was the fucker who did this?" Naruto was about to reply, but the doors to the office opened and Mitarashi Anko stood there with the clan heads and the Hokage himself, and at the back was a giant of a man with a massive mane of silver hair. "Uzumaki, Naruto, do you know why you are here?" "No, Hokage-sama." The Hokage nodded. "You were brought here because there have been accusations of foul play in the Chunin exams." Naruto cocked his head. "Foul play?" These exams represent war. The first one is scouting information, second transporting a package, and due to circumstances I do not trust my team, I dislike my team. In fact I filled in several complaint forms and yet none of them reached you. I decided screw it, what if the information or package we were given is inaccurate or even false. That myself I tune in with ease and probably Jonin unless they were playing games with me. Some of them, Naruto-kun. However the Jonin sensei could catch you as could Alpha and Beta squads in Anbu anyway. We have been following you since the start of the exams and do concur that you do not fit with your team. Droned, who Naruto could only describe as an adult version of Shino. Thank you, what is the next plan? Am I out of the exams? Am I promoted? The tall man at the back snorted, you gotta complete the exams, but so you know depending on how you perform, we are casting some good votes and recommendations. Naruto nodded and winced, fucking seal, fucking snakes. That caught the big man's attention and Naruto didn't even see him move and the guy was in front of him, let's see what my teammate did. The man whistled, I can technically remove this, but that's it. Naruto winced as pain rushed through him as he felt the second seal peeled off, attacked by Orochimaru. He put something on me and gave Sasuke something, got captured by a sand team and they mentioned something about a surpriser attack on Konoha and were going to make me give information. But intercepted by another genin team, someone with massive eyebrows and bright green jumpsuit. Rock Lee, under training of mate guy, easily the best Jonin sensei in Taijutsu. Anyway, we need to be in the arena. Naruto entered the arena to some filthy looks from his two teammates and together they completed the ranks of the surviving genin. Welcome you successful genin to the tower and the completion of the second task, however, due to circumstances we need to hold a preliminary round. Hiba couldn't keep his frustration hidden, but we deserve, he stopped as Naruto withdrew a seal and chucked it onto the Inuzuka's back, silencing tag, he stated as the Hokage nodded and explained the state of play, which was the top 10 would be the ones to fight in front of their respective village leaders. The first bout will be between Okado Yoroi versus Uchiha Sasuke. Okado Yoroi rushed forwards, his hands coated in chakra to the point it was visible to the naked eye. That's impossible, exclaimed Sakura as she observed Sasuke employ his famed dexterity granted by his Sharingan. At this current moment in time said bloodline limit was deactivated and Sasuke was wincing, which was not unnoticed by Hari, Jiraiya and Kakashi. Not impossible, Sakura-san. Just hard to do and a genin being able to do it is impressive, said Hari before he turned to Kakashi. What did you do to the Uchiha? Sakura bristled but remembered that the man next to her sensei was her superior, had held very little respect for those the council supported. Fuinjutsu. Evil suppressing method, best I could do. Hari nodded, prodigy in many things, but Fuinjutsu you are not. I am concerned about your Uchiha's mentality. At this particular moment Sasuke delivered a rather weak kidney punch and received a kick to the head in retaliation. Naruto smirked and decided to annoy Sakura about the fact she couldn't force her chakra to become visible. Or are you saying physical chakra manifestation is impossible because you and your precious Sasuke can't do it? Sakura's face turned to one of rage. She realized Naruto was baiting her and turned to watch the match as Yoroi's hand clamped down on Sasuke's head. Naruto winced externally but internally smirked, serves the bastard right. Bloody hell. He's a chakra leech. That's either rare Kekkei Genkai, genetic modification, or something else entirely, am I right, sensei? Hari turned to his apprentice. Chakra leech. Why, he turned to see the Uchiha being visibly drained of chakra. Ah, I see, I couldn't tell you. But I think Uchiha is in trouble. He wants me to use the curse mark. No. I'll beat this guy under my own power. Growled Sasuke to himself as he rolled backwards onto his shoulders and kicked his opponent square in the stomach. Hari nodded, your teammate has won. Winner Uchiha Sasuke. Sasuke left the arena and cold-shouldered his way past everyone until he came to Naruto. You better win so I can crush you in the finals. Naruto smirked, be prepared to gamble on your eyes. Everyone who was nearby winced. Uzumaki. Snapped one Yuhi Kurenai. Naruto casually turned to her. Don't lecture me, you have no right. You don't know what I have to deal with. Believe me, idle threats to the eyes are best way I can get revenge outside of risking court-martial. Growled Naruto. The tension was broken when Hari clouded the blonde across the back of the head. Behave, Naruto. Now observe the rest of the matches. The rest of the matches were as normal, see and I'm. Except for there were an odd-numbered amount of participants: Will Haruno Sakura, Yamanaka Ino and Uzumaki Naruto. Hiba, who had previously just trashed an unknowing sacrificial Suna genin, smirked wolfishly. So many women. Shut it in, Inuzuka. I have a teammate to beat some sense into. With that, Naruto he railing and landed in the arena. He checked his pockets. He had his homing tags, explosive tags, several kunai, 10 coils of ninja wire and his numerous blades. Heiichi Gekko took one look at his lover's brother's apprentice and did not like what he saw one tiny bit. He could see skill, determination and utter hatred for someone begin. He wheezed and vanished in a plume of smoke and feathers. Sakura and Ino looked at one another before turning on Naruto. This is for all the times you have disrespected us. Ino shrieked, unleashing a handful of shuriken, all of which sailed past Naruto. Naruto vanished in a shunshin. He reappeared in front of Ino and launched a blistering roundhouse kick, driving the wind out of Ino and bending her double. Asuma winced. You think he's being too harsh? Naruto vanished in a shunshin, reappeared in front of Sakura and drove an elbow towards her throat. Kakashi stared, shocked. Asuma, no. He's annoyed at Sakura, possibly because she turned him down. Hari smirked. No, he's told me that he'd rather her dead than save her. Kurenai, Asuma and Kakashi looked at Hari, curiosity evident. Uzumaki, Naruto, that you think you know it's a lie. I've been training him ever since he failed his genin exam. The only reason he failed was because of his ancestry. I know who he is, who he should be and what he should become. Disgraced ex-shinobi or not at the time, I'd never let the council fail Kushina-sensei and Minato-sensei's legacy to be tarnished. This conversation was happening in stressed undertones, completely undetectable to any genin who were trying to listen, and not many were trying to, as they were watching the dead last of Konoha single-handedly hand two of the top 10 shinobi hand over fist. Naruto smirked, threw 2 smoke bombs on the floor and drained his chakra to form 2 very powerful clones. 2 clones. Naruto. How the hell have you survived this long Shintention no jutsu? Hari, what's going to happen to Ino if she uses that jutsu on Naruto? Asked Asuma worriedly. All depends if that's the clone or the original. But knowing Naruto, nothing good either way. Ino smirked. Got you? Naruto smirked, revealing his fox-sharpened canines. Or have you bunshin no Shintishin? Dabakua. A catastrophic explosion erupted in the middle of the arena, and at key points in the arena, concealed Fuin jutsu began glowing in an eerie pale pinkish light. Hari-san, your training of Naruto-kun is most impressive. But did you really have to teach him that jutsu? Hari grinned. I didn't teach him that. I ran out of space to store my jutsu that I've learned. So I plead the fifth. He got the jutsu from me. I don't remember teaching him it, but he got it from me. The explosion should have left gaping craters in the floor, but due to the seals, they had absorbed the majority of the explosion, but it still left visible cracks and breaks in the arena. Ino was knocked out completely. The shock of the possessing a clone which subsequently blew up had left her with some mental scarring. Naruto turned on his former teammate. Surrender Sakura. Ino, she'll live. Should be able to carry on as a ninja. You, on the other hand, I'm going to break you. You can't beat me. My chakra's already coming back. Sakura charged forward. Shana. She couldn't stop herself. Dabakua. The ground rocked as another explosion occurred in the arena. Sakura jumped backwards, taking superficial wounds from the backlash of the exploding clone. Naruto rushed forwards, letting go partially. His disguised blades jumped into his hands, he flicked them, and everyone stared as 2 tento-length blades appeared. Sakura pulled out a kunai and held it in a stance that was supposed to help protect her from kinjutsu users. Naruto smirked as he went forwards, his attacks landing multiple cuts against Sakura as she flailed futilely to fend off his heavy blows. Naruto grabbed her wrist and slammed his forehead into hers. Naruto winced at the recoil and of skull hitting skull. Sakura started bawling. Naruto was having none of it. He grabbed her by the lapels and bodily slammed her onto the floor, his blades digging into her. You do realize that they aren't going to. Uzumaki. Naruto, stand down. Harino. Sakura is unable to continue. Ordered Hade. Naruto jumped backwards as Kakashi entered the arena, uncalled for. Naruto. Nope. Perfectly called for, just making my displeasure of her known. Silence rocked the arena and the Sandaime coughed. The Sandaime called the finalists and they assembled into a line. The Sandaime saw that Naruto and Sasuke were near each other and the hatred between the two was almost visible to the naked eye. Due to how Naruto and Sasuke were standing, in the background were Kakashi and Sakura. Sakura, it seemed, recovered quickly from her unconscious state, and for one moment the Sandaime saw himself with a young Tsunade and young Orochimaru and Jiraiya. The Sandaime went on to address the finalists. Most of it Naruto tuned out, but he learned that he had a month to prepare and it was a tournament style and he would be fighting either Sasuke or Gaara in the final. His first match was against Neji. Dismissed. Kakashi vanished, leaving his team to make their own ways out of the tower. Dobe Sasuke. Naruto smirked. Nope. Not teaching you a thing. With that, Naruto vanished in a swirl of smoke. He arrived at Hari's house. Due to the fact he was being trained by Hari, it made sense to be nearby. When he entered the house, he saw 2 people sitting at the table. Naruto-kun, what have I said about knocking? Asked Hari, a grin on his face. To check you're not busy. Anyway, I need to ask you something, can you? Hari sighed. I wish I could, but I can't. You see, I had to inform your true sensei about your level. Your trainer wasn't happy and thus instructed me to train whatever I deemed useful and he'd take over. I thought he would have done so after this Chunin exam, but he's turned up early. This is Jiraiya-sama of the legendary Sannin and your godfather. He's also the spymaster of Konoha. He's your trainer. Jiraiya looked at Naruto. He seems rather solid. I would send you on some perverted errand, but due to this guy training you, we begin early. Naruto nodded and headed upstairs to have a shower whilst Hari had a shower and changed. Sasuke opened his front door to find Kakashi standing there with a bowl of tomatoes and a carton of tomato juice. I figured we could talk about the training regime I'm going to put you through to fight Gaara. Sasuke nodded and let Kakashi in. Thanks to the Sharingan he could tell if someone was impersonating his sensei. Soon enough he was plating up 2 plates of Japanese tomato salads. I wasn't expecting this. Kakashi said with a grin as Sasuke sat opposite him. I wasn't expecting you anyway, you wanted to talk. Kakashi nodded. What did you observe about Naruto's fight with Sakura and Ino? Sasuke sighed, he hated talking about the dead last skilled for a genin with the Shunshin no Jutsu, pretty good with some sort of bunshin, seals as well and okay, with Kinjutsu again good for a genin, and pretty good for the dope. Nothing couldn't handle. Kakashi smiled. Good observations, but I think you're missing a few things, mainly because Naruto was holding things back from you. It's evident that he knows about your bloodline, otherwise his threat wouldn't have been taken so seriously. What else do you remember? He's stupid, stubborn and able to keep going. Kakashi nodded again. He uses a Jonin version of the bunshin. Due to who his parents were, his legacy wouldn't allow him to use anything less than elemental bunshin and solid ones. Sasuke's eyes widened. His tactic is quite likely to practice with his bunshin and use them for me to tire myself out on, and then he picks up the win. But won't there's something you're not telling me about his parentage? I'm assuming by the time we get to fight, I'll be on barely any chakra, reserves are halfway full, whereas Naruto is likely to be running on full chakra or looking like he is. Kakashi nodded. In straight up chakra levels, there are very few people who can stand up to your teammate in a straight jutsu fight that is involving Chunin as well. I could beat him, but it's likely to wear me out. You also need to remember the council has a grudge against him, so it is hard for him to find a tutor, whereas you have me. Prepare for the worst and hope for the best. I'm going to increase you chakra levels, speed and strength, and teach you possibly 3 jutsu. Sasuke grinned. The dope was going to lose one of those, has to be the Shunshin. I want Naruto to panic when he sees me using one of his own techniques. Naruto was up at the break of dawn and was at training field 13, one of the last normal training fields before the scenario-based ones for teams. True to his word, Jiraiya was sitting there meditating. You're really good and bad. With speed, strength and joviality of a much younger man, he jumped to his feet. This is how your days are going to be. Chakra control, breakfast, Taijutsu ninjutsu Kinjutsu, lunch, Fuinjutsu jutsu learning, dinner, and run through of days learning. Hari's given me a good foundation, and now I'm going to teach you a few things. I have an understanding of Supiajutsu, spear techniques, and Kinjutsu, so I will be getting you tutors in that. My specialities are Taijutsu, ninjutsu, summoning jutsu, Fuinjutsu and toad techniques. Naruto nodded. One more thing, what is a godfather? Why weren't you around when I needed you if you were my godfather? The only reason Naruto wasn't screaming at the man it was because Hari had ingrained into him to listen to answers to his questions. Godfathers are meant to look after children if they have no next of kin. As for why I wasn't around, Kano has Spymaster, a member of the Sannin, I have enemies of my own, coupled with your parents on enemies, I was more effective being away from the village. I've lost count of how many infiltrators, hired knives, assassination attempts and plots I have bungled to keep you alive. Your allowance that the Hokage gave you, it had the orphan stipend and my money as well. I'm not going to ask you to forgive me, but Naruto nodded. I understand. I get it now that you've explained it to me. You can make it up to me by getting me to Chunin rank. Jiraiya nodded and beckoned Naruto over. With that, training began. Naruto progressed quickly and was developing rapidly. His control was now down to what should be acceptable for a low jonin. With this done, it meant he could now exercise far greater control over his existing jutsu, which although were fairly chakra intensive, Naruto was still wasting too much on them. In the process, his explosive, restraining, smoke and elemental tags had developed nicely. Due to the conditions of the arena, Jiraiya had informed him it was fairly hard for Suiton users to demonstrate their skill with the element, so Naruto had spent the better part of an evening practicing sealing water into scrolls. He didn't know how much he was going to need, and considering his tags had a limit of half a gallon of water, he had filled up 8 tags. His other elemental seals were mainly for absorbing Kaiten and Futon jutsu. Sakura woke up. The last thing she remembered, she had just walked into the living room of her house when the world spun and she knew no more. Sakura. You're awake. Sakura looked around but found her eyesight wasn't a good. Ah-san, I can't see you. How long was I? You've been out for 3 days, Sakura-chan. A wizened voice said it was the Hokage. He seemed upset. Oh, Hokage-sama, what's Orochimaru? He poisoned you in the forest of death. We didn't detect it then, and we didn't check it after your fight with Ino. If we did, you might have had a chance. A chance for what? Rasped Sakura. To survive, Orochimaru was a brilliant student. One of the best. As were Tsunade and Jiraiya, all 3 could have done so much for the village, and they did have, and in the case of Jiraiya still does. But Orochimaru, he gave the T&I department almost all of his knowledge on poisons. To be honest, I had forgotten his talent with them, and as a result of my hubris and age, you're paying the price. Sakura's sightless eyes filled with tears. Is it going to be painful? I don't know. Sakura nodded. Can you send word to Sasuke-kun, Kakashi-sensei and Naruto? Sarutobi didn't have to say a thing, and two Anbu were running across the village. Naruto deflected the blade strike, grabbed his attacker's wrist and kicked him in the stomach before placing his tanto to his opponent's throat, only to find it had been replaced with a log. Naruto dissolved in a plume of smoke and reappeared just off the Anbu's right-hand side and caught the operative square in the mask. Naruto stopped and found that it was Gecko. Gecko-sensei? Are you okay? The sickly-looking man grinned. Yeah. Didn't realize that you that unorthodox. I thought. The cough isn't a fake, it's just an exaggeration of an inherited condition my family has. Our lungs are fractionally smaller and deformed, meaning that we become short of breath really quickly. Naruto nodded. I won't tell anyone. Need a new mask? Heiichi shook his head and pulled out a new one, his evidence spare. I won't now but will when I leave. I have to say that you're really good for a genin. If Jiraiya-sama hadn't claimed you for an apprentice, I would have. I've got nothing against you doing an extended apprenticeship. It classifies as a mission and you both get paid, so that's a bonus. However, you've got to be sponsored each by 3 shinobi. No, anyone who has been in contact with you over a period of time like 3 years can provide references. However, due to Naruto's status, it's unlikely he's going to get the references, said Jiraiya. Gecko grinned. I could, Yugao could, and probably Asuma. As for me, Hari, Kurenai and Anko, though that one will be interesting. Jiraiya grinned. I'll add one. They'd be idiots to refuse me, said Jiraiya. Just then, said Kunoichi, Yuzuki Yugao materialized. Gecko-kun, what happened? Uzumaki Naruto kicked me in the face. Yugao snorted. She had heard of similar things happening amongst other sword users. Jiraiya had asked to assist him. Uzumaki Naruto, the Sandame asked me to bring you to the hospital. It's about Haruno Sakura. Naruto's eye twitched. Let on. I'll follow. Yugao vanished, as did Gecko and Jiraiya. Naruto appeared and walked into the hospital. The receptionist fixed him with a glower. Before anyone could retaliate, Naruto flipped a blade and held it to her nose. The Hokage summoned me. Want to take this to trial about why you delayed Akage's summons? As reviled as I am a shinobi. What do you think the outcome will be? That's enough, Naruto. It was the Sandame and his eyes were cold. He had just seen the entire scene unfold. Someone take her to T&I and find out who else is doing this. Naruto followed the Sandame where he found an Anbu escort outside of a room. He took a peep inside and Kakashi and Sasuke were there. He sighed. He needed to put a face on and show some unity. I'm here, Sakura. Naruto called, walking into the room. Sakura tried to raise her arms, but it didn't work. Where? By your right-hand side. Naruto replied, sitting in the chair next to the bed. You're going to be alright, Sakura? Asked Sasuke. No, I'm dying. I just wanted to say my goodbyes. Thank you, Kakashi-sensei, for teaching me. Sasuke-kun, Naruto, thanks for being my teammates. Naruto chuckled at that. Be honest, Sakura. We weren't ever teammates. Hell, we weren't even close, but it was an honor to serve alongside you. We may not have been friends or anything, but you were a comrade. Rest assured I'll kill the bastard that did this. Sakura smiled. It was Orochimaru. Well, we'll do it somehow, Naruto said before standing up to leave. You're not going to stay? Asked Mibuyuki Haruno, her eyes narrowing. You're on the council, aren't you? Civilian sighed. Naruto replied, his eyes flickering. She nodded. Look up the bills allowing shops to use their discretion on who to serve and how much things cost. Use your brain. See you. Not saying goodbye to your sensei and teammates? Asked Kakashi with an eye smile. Teach me something and actually act like a team, then maybe. Sakura, I will see you whenever I next see you. Hopefully it'll be after killing Orochimaru. With that, Naruto walked out. Kakashi and Sasuke left afterwards after saying goodbyes to Sakura as the other graduates walked in. It was Ino who was with Sakura to the end. In the end, as Sakura died, they had resolved their animosity and the pair ended up as the friends they had been before puberty hit. Naruto appeared back at his training spot to find Jiraiya unrolling a scroll. Back already? What's next? Summoning. The month passed in a blur for Naruto. For the past month all he could see was the back of his head for the amount of black eyes. His stomach and ribs were aching and he could barely feel his legs. But aside from the numbness, Naruto had learned lots. More than he had thought he was going to learn. Jiraiya, upon learning that Naruto possessed the shadow clone technique, the training had subsequently doubled. Jiraiya had not been alone. Jiraiya had managed to acquire the experts of Gecko, Shiranui Genma, Namiashi Raido and Yuzuki Yugao. Heiichi had been chosen due to his skills with Kenjutsu, Genma had skill with Fuinjutsu and some skill with Kaitenjutsu, Raido possessed a jutsu and some of the best chakra control outside the Hyuga clan and Suiton Jutsu. Finally, Yuzuki Yugao, she was known for tracking and infusing long-bladed weapons with chakra. Jiraiya had assisted Naruto in refining the skills of his other tutors and had introduced him to his birthright of the Toad contract. His hours under Raito had paid off because after 2 attempts of summoning, the first one summoned Gamakichi and Gamatatsu, the sons of the Toad boss. The second attempt brought the Toad himself. Amabunta had accepted Naruto after the boy had just about managed to hang on to him with chakra control. Jiraiya had set about having Naruto summon as many Toads as he could and the ones that would listen to him. Naruto had inadvertently summoned one of the 2 Toad sages, Fukasaku. Fukasaku did not teach Naruto anything to do with the Toads aside for teaching him how meditate and to focus. It was the night before Chunin finals and Hari, Jiraiya and Naruto were in the small eating area with Yugao and Hade. Naruto, just want to say that these past 10 months or so that I've been training you have been the best few months in a while. Just so you know, regardless of you becoming a Chunin, it would be an honor and a privilege to train you even more. Naruto had to fight back tears. You would teach me? Why? Hari grinned because it's what your mother would have wanted her team to do. Since Kakashi failed, I figured I'll tell you a bit about your mother. Her name was Uzumaki Kushina, heiress of the Uzumaki clan. They were known for large and dense reserves and a very potent life force. The wife of the Shodaime died when Kushina arrived at the village when she was about 9. She would have lived longer, but they needed to transfer the fox into your mother. Naruto stared at him. You mean I have to hold the fox? Hari nodded. You're the only one who could. Your mother got lucky. Generally Biju creation is done when the chakra coils are still being formed, but then again your mother never intended to use its chakra, so she had more leeway. As for the fourth, he was her closest friend. When she gave birth to you, she told him to use you as you were the only Uzumaki with the capability to restrain the fox. Naruto nodded and looked at them. You're botching the story slightly. Why? Your father's instructions and the Sandaime's. You have to be either a Chunin or 18 to learn everything. Your parents had enemies and a lot of them. Hell, you now know about your mother, said Yugao, messing with Naruto's hair. What happened to the Uzumaki clan? Asked Naruto. Wiped out more or less. They got attacked by Kumo, Iwa, Kiri and Taki. The Uzumaki had no hope, so they sealed off the archives and sent the scroll to the Hokage, the Nidaime who hid the thing. Anyway, to fight the Uzumaki who are unprepared is bad enough, but it can be done. But to fight the Uzumaki who are prepared and knowing what is happening, welcome to hell. Kumo, Iwa and Kiri attacked blindly and just kept going straight, but the sealed traps and ambushes wrought a heavy toll on them. Taki, although more subtle, was punished far worse even though they did far less. Taki is a lesser village with possibly 3/4 less of a fighting force than any great nation, and the caliber of their shinobi need to be much more if they were to survive. They lost about 1/4 of their attacking force and lost more due to injuries. They've only just recovered. As for Iwa, Kumo and Kiri, between them they lost a good half of their forces. They only managed to defeat the Uzumaki clan because they unleashed their Biju. However, they turned on themselves. Konoha was tied up with problems on all sides, and we arrived just to see the last of the Uzumaki fall. That's why our swirl on our jacket is red. Naruto nodded as they ate. So I come from a family of badasses. I'll make sure to honor them tomorrow. Naruto slept well that night. It was the first proper night's sleep he had in a month. He quickly learned why shinobi relished true night sleep whenever they could get them. Naruto woke just before his alarm, and Hari jerked awake as Naruto shattered the clock with a slam. Naruto entered the kitchen to find breakfast in a bento box and spare rags, grease and whetstones on the table, along with fresh holsters of shuriken and kunai and scrolls containing explosive tags and large storage seals. Barry sorted out his ninjato, katana and flip blades and his tanto, and he placed them in seals which he placed on his body, where would keep them upon his promotion. Naruto headed out of the house via the back door, jumped onto the rooftops and began to head towards the arena. As he jumped from rooftop to rooftop, he heard some civilians murmur, I've got the daimyo's horses ready to go. My cousin has got roaming pickets ready to stop the demon brat from arriving. My cousin has wagered several thousand ryo to ensure he does not arrive. If he does arrive, he's not going to make it past his first opponent. Naruto grinned as he saw Tenten leave her family's shop. He jumped down and walked up next to her. Hey Tenten-san. Tenten smirked. She liked Naruto. She thought he was a pretty decent shinobi, but a little bit on the brutal side. Have you heard, Naruto? Civilians trying to make me late. Yeah. I'll see you later. Naruto split off and headed towards the participants' entrance of the stadium. Thankfully no one had picketed it off yet, so Naruto entered the arena. It turned out he wasn't the last, but one of them. As he arrived, Gaara arrived shortly afterwards. As Naruto thought Sasuke wasn't present. He nodded to Shikamaru and Shino as he took his place in the line. Genma appeared. I am the proctor, Shiranui Genma, and right now this is your moment. Naruto smiled. He could not believe that he had made it to the final. Everyone here is going to be marked by the shinobi in the stands. It is them and them alone who decide your promotion to Chunin. Any questions? Are names going to matter here? No. If you're not here by the time your name is repeated 3 times, then you are disqualified, and that comes from the Hokage himself. Naruto grinned. Somewhere the clock struck 11 and the Chunin exam began. Everyone bar Uzumaki, Naruto and Hyuga Neji, please vacate the arena. The Chunin aspirants vacated the arena and Naruto took his place opposite Neji. Begin when ready. The genin nodded to one another, settled into a fighting stance, and Neji moved. Naruto was fast, but Neji had trained under the most physically Jonin sensei Konoha had at her disposal. Naruto bent double as Neji's palm strike with no chakra behind it hit him in the diaphragm. It's over. You were destined to lose the moment you stepped into the arena with me. Stated Ninja. Naruto smirked and cracks began to appear around the hand strike. That would be true if I was Naruto. Bunshin Bakua. The clone exploded with a slight fireball forcing Neji to expend chakra 8 trigrams revolving heaven. Naruto appeared above Neji. He had the moment he entered the participant stadium created an exploding clone and hidden himself above the participants. Something that hadn't been unnoticed by the Jonin and Chunin assembled. Naruto reached into his pockets and pulled out 4 kunai and held them loose between his fingers, certainly reminding the Jonin of the boy's father. Now that you have actually arrived, dope, maybe we can actually get this match started. Naruto shook his head. If you think we've just started, you are so wrong. We've already begun. Naruto flipped the kunai, holding them in an unorthodox grip with one underneath his pinky and another between his thumb and fourth finger. With some skill he chucked the latter 2 kunai. Neji looked unimpressed and activated his Kekkei Genkai 2 kunai. Taijuu kunai Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. The 2 kunai suddenly replaced themselves with 2000. Neji managed to evade the kunai but took superficial cuts to his arms, chest and legs. He rushed forwards. He was slightly regretting his clan's tradition, only using the basic 3 weight, use the substitution weight too damn many, and he's made me use a good 1/8 of my chakra to survive his suicide clone. Naruto readied himself and as Neji closed the distance 8 trigrams 32 palms. Shunshin no Jutsu. Fuin Jutsu Kai. Naruto dissolved into smoke, just missing the attack, and reappeared behind him, his break clips in his hands. Naruto squeezed them and flipped them, and they unfolded into his traditional Tanto short blades. Fancy yourself proficient in Kinjutsu? My teammate trained me extensively against it. Naruto smirked coldly. You mean Higurashi Tenten? Yes, she's good. Possibly the best against traditional Kinjutsu, but try this Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. 7 clones erupted into existence. In the crowds the shinobi were impressed but were getting less enthusiastic. To them it seemed Naruto was a one-trick pony, but what happened next was impressive. Tenten. Futen. Wind Cage. 8 interlinking blades of wind effectively trapped the opponent and inevitably shredded them. Tenten. Katen. Ignition. Wind is weaker to fire, but in Naruto's case, wind fueled fire, and what happened next was a colossal firestorm engulfing Neji. There was a poof of smoke deep inside. Neji had replaced himself with a log and managed to get the drop on Naruto. Naruto spun and his blade, at the cost of being separated from his hand, temporarily blocked Neji's hand strike. Naruto breathed a sigh of relief and lashed out with a roundhouse kick which forced Neji to move back. Neji darted back in and Naruto met him. Naruto had learnt in theory the utter devastating skill of the Hyuga gentle fist fighting style. Naruto executed another seal, this one had just been approved by Jiraiya. The Hyuga in the stands, who were observing with Byakugan, suddenly saw excess chakra flowing out of the Tenketsu spots. The actual thing was similar but different. Chakra is everywhere in a human's body, in the clothes, blood, sweat and tears. After washing clothes the residual chakra never properly leaves the body. Now Naruto had managed to stitch seals into his clothing that basically utilized the chakra in his clothing as additional, but crude chakra armor. 8 trigrams 128 palms. Neji struck as he took a vicious body blow that definitely compromised his ribs. But the overextension and supplementary use of chakra to make the strike do that damage left Naruto open. The strike struck home, the strikes disabled the chakra cloth protections with 16 strikes, and the remaining 112 slammed into Naruto, who could not fold back as he felt like he had been stabbed. Stance. The Jonin and Chunin were impressed. They weren't sure what Uzumaki Naruto was going to be able to do, but from what they saw through good use of Fuin Jutsu and the Shadow Clone technique and 2 elemental sword release techniques, had kept them entertained. Hyuga Neji, like most Hyuga, were 3-trick ponies. Substitution, revolving heaven and the gentle palm technique, but for a branch house to be able to do the revolving heaven and the 128 palms, had won over the head of the clan. Naruto needs to show us something to get of this. Someone said. He was met with agreements. What do you think he's going to do? Haruka asked curiously. He had cashed in a favor to watch the first round matches. I don't know. I don't think he can. The young Chunin said. He had put money on Uzumaki Naruto winning the match. He had been drunk, but he did put money on the brat. Izuki Hari grinned. The purple-haired Takebetsu smirked cryptically. He should be able to get out of this arena. Naruto groaned. One arm, one leg and half of his body had been shut off from his chakra. He brought his uninjured arm up and flooded his body with as much as chakra as he could. Kuchiyus no Jutsu. Amahira appeared. Naruto-sama, are you okay? Naruto grunted. I need to get onto your back, need healing, and I need you to activate this. He pulled out a roll of notes. Are those explosive notes? Yes and no. 520 seals of 5 gallons of toad oil and 1 ignition tag. Amahira may have been a toad by form and healer by trade, but his love for Kaiten Jutsu could warm the heart of any Uchiha. Fuin Jutsu. Toad oil release. The ravel of tags began to open and displaced enough oil to flood the arena up to Hyuga Niji's ankles if he had not been water walking. Fuin Jutsu. Ig, I forfeit. Niji called. He pulled out a flare bomb and chucked it into the air. Genma, who had vacated the ring the moment Naruto had exploded, made his way into the ring. Amahira landed on the oil gamma art. Chakra restoration. Naruto groaned as the toad slammed its chakra through his body, reconnecting the chakra points. Winner Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto got rid of the oil and placed it back in its tags, and he watched patiently and observed his opponents. Kiba lost badly to Shino. Shino had started leeching Kiba's chakra the moment they entered the arena. And Kuro received a pass to the next round due to there being an odd-numbered amount of people. Shikamaru and Tamari displayed albeit slightly boring match with no flashy jutsu like the first 2 rounds, but the shinobi were certainly impressed. Definitely promote them to Chunin. Finally came the match that everyone had put money on. Uchiha Sasuke vs Subaku no Gaara. Can Uchiha Sasuke enter the arena? Called Genma, the question was repeated, and after the third call, Sasuke had not shown up. Subaku no Gaara wins by forfeit. The last word was out of his mouth as Kakashi and Sasuke appeared in a shunshin. We're not late, are we? Asked Kakashi curiously. Uchiha Sasuke has been disqualified. Sasuke's Sharingan flickered to life as he spluttered angrily and his Fuin Jutsu marks pulsed as well, but for now Kakashi's seal held. Get him out of here, Kakashi, and watch the next fight. Moving on to the next round of fights, will Subaku no Gaara and Uzumaki Naruto enter the arena? Naruto was over the balcony and in the arena as his surname was called. He landed like a toad, calmly crouching to displace the impact of landing on the ground ready. The fighters took their positions, Genma dropped his arm and leapt clear as Gaara thrust his hands forwards and the sand jumped at his command. Naruto's eyes widened as he backflipped away. Okay, Naruto think he uses sand to augment his body. He probably uses the sand to fight. I need to break or make his sand inaccessible to him. Naruto said to himself as he stuck himself to the wall and he pumped chakra into his clothes, giving him maximum protection. He reached into his pockets and pulled out his 30 water tags. I hope this enough. Fuin. Kai. It was like a waterfall had been released. The water gushed out of the tags and began to pool in the arena. Gaara jumped backwards as if he had been scolded. Naruto pressed the attack. Suiton Bakushi Shoha. Water release. Exploding water shockwave. The water rose as it fell, creating massive tidal wave. Naruto groaned, he should have waited for the water to settle before using it because of the descending water required more chakra to make it rise. But he managed it. It was as effective, but 5 gallons of water crashed down on Gaara. Naruto panted, that technique had taken more chakra than he had factored. Uzumaki, you shall suffer. Growled Gaara. He managed to stand atop of the water, albeit shakily. Gyuden. Mugen Sajin Diatapa. Naruto closed his eyes and dived for the water as the lumps of sand shot towards him, but due to the amount of water that had coated his sand, it had rendered his sand techniques unusable. You can't use your sand techniques, game over. Growled Naruto. Gaara smirked, oh really? Futon. Renkuden. Naruto caught the hand seals just about and replaced himself with a log which was crushed to a pulp. That's some serious Futon jutsu you have there. Naruto rolled again as another 3 bullets tore towards him, creating small paths in the arena of water. They impacted with such force the protective seals on the arena, created by the Nidaime, and reinforced subsequently by the Sandaime Hokage, Uzumaki Mito and the Yondaime Hokage that they faltered. As powerful as the seals were, none of them were prepped to deal with a seal Jinchuriki and a Jinchuriki that suffered from split personality disorder, and the other personality was the Bijuu itself. Page Booth, Ireya and the Sandaime's eyes widened. Jinchuriki. Kazukiage-san, you did not tell me that your son was your Jinchuriki. I trust he can control it. The Kazukiage smiled softly. Of course he can, but why should he? Nihin Shohin no Jutsu. Arena. Feathers started to fall, Naruto's eyes flashed red, and the Jinjutsu broke. Tajukage Bunshin no Jutsu. Wake up the shinobi, invasion. Start civilian evacuation. Shouted Naruto. He rounded on Gaara, pulling out 3 soldier pills. The chakra surged through his system. Fuin. Kai. The water was mixed with oil. Fuchius no Jutsu. There was a poof of smoke and Gamakichi appeared. Yo. What's happening? He asked, attaching himself to Naruto's head. Invasion. We need to take out him by any means needed. I have a wind jutsu. Ichi smirked. I've got a fire. Gyuden. Diatapa. Kaiten. Enden. The massive fireball hit the oil, releasing a massive explosion of superheated gas, waking up a stadium full of shinobi and civilians. Sasuke bristled with rage, as the genjutsu descended he dispelled it with ease, and he launched himself into the arena. He landed on the oil substance as Naruto, and someone unleashed a massive fire and wind combination, which he didn't manage to copy, but got a register on its power. He literally just cleared the oil and ran up the wall as the stadium exploded in a concentrated fireball. The heat was intense. He felt like he was going to die. But he managed to survive it. What was that? He snapped. Naruto grunted, little something I've been working on, Bollocks. Bastard got away. Naruto found himself looking at his opponent being supported by the girl and the makeup guy. Why is it always the pretty ones? Naruto groused. Pretty ones what, Naruto? Genma appeared on the torched arena floor. Naruto and Sasuke joined him. Pretty girls always having to be so bad and try to kill you? Naruto asked. Genma snorted, just the way it works, the exams are over. Report to your sensei for instructions. Konoha. Across all of Konoha, Chunin and Jonin alike clashed with attacking forces of Suna and Odo. Suna possessed some very high-quality shinobi as they were one of the Great Five, but the second smallest. They were only just larger than Kiri, who spent most of their time killing each other. Odo on the other hand possessed a quality of quantity. But Konoha had one thing they didn't. The home advantage. Contrary to popular belief, fighting in Great Five villages happened quite a bit, but the attackers could seldom hold it. Unfortunately, Odo negated some of these advantages as they were trained by Orochimaru of the Sannin, who had been part of the village. However, many invaders of the secret tunnels never made it to their destinations as the Anbu deployed en masse. Anbu were designed for one thing and one thing only, and that was to fight, kill and die on the darkest and most treasonous missions if discovered. There were about 120 members of the Anbu active at any one time. These 120 shinobi were the Dark Fist of Konoha. They hunted in the tunnels, taking no prisoners and no casualties. Rooftop nearby clan district, 24 incoming shinobi had been paralyzed by a shadow. 24 paralyzed shinobi wasn't a big thing, but when it was Nara who had done it, it was a pretty big thing indeed. I can't move. Gasped one of the shinobi. Come on boys. If you've never heard of the Leaf Shadow Bind Jutsu, then you'll love this next one. The Leaf Village's Shadow Neck Binding Jutsu. The hidden man rasped as the shadow slowly strangled the 24 nin in front of him. Nara Shikaku, the Jonin Hancho, smirked as he looked at his handiwork and headed towards the flower shop. At said flower shop, a Meili no lookalike stared disinterestedly at the two Jonin advancing upon him mind destruction jutsu. Inoichi turned away from his attackers as his jutsu took hold. He nodded to Shikaku, who casually dropped two Chunin with two kunai. Below them, a large man swung his bow staff, sweeping Odo nin off their feet and sending them into doors, walls and angry old decrepit civilians who hadn't made it to the shelters and had equipped themselves with the sharpest implements they could find. Multi-size jutsu. It's just like the old days, huh, Shikaku? Choza. Choza nodded as Shikaku smirked and Ino Shikacho trip his back. As he spoke, the entirety of the named clans came tearing out of their land and teamed up into the genin teams they had when they were young. Water supply. In the middle of one deserted street located near the water lines that were going to be sabotaged were 8 fresh Jonin from Suna and 1 veteran. Fortunately for the new Jonin, the veteran had served in the Third Shinobi War, but even he didn't know who their opponent was. Their opponent was in his late 60s, maybe 70s, with a wok, ladle and tanto. He also had a prosthetic leg that also contained a hidden weapon. He was one of many man in genin to grace Konoha's forces, but he was by far the eldest man in genin. At his age, he was the only shinobi that was allowed to talk informally to the Hokage and his advisors. This man was Maraboshi Kasuke. Kasuke smiled as he faced down his opponents. Kasuke grinned. May I offer you, good Jonin, a suggestion? He made no effort to form and sort of hand seal or go for his wok or tanto. Does it involve dying like a civilian? Civilian. Mocked one of the new Jonin, pointing his kunai at Kasuke as if lining up the perfect kill shot. No, actually. It was to run away. You see, my name is Maraboshi Kasuke, the eldest man in genin of Konoha, veteran of 3 shinobi wars and genin under Senju Hashirama-sama and Senju Tabarama-sama, and the only genin to perform the water style. Water dragon bullet. With only 5 hand seals. The great light blue dragon materialized out of the water tanks and shot towards the 9 Jonin. 4 were crushed under the direct weight of the massed amount of water. Kasuke was amongst them like a genin chasing Tora, his tanto lashed out, opening the jugular and trachea of the 5ths, and the Jonin collapsed hands, grabbing his throat too slowly and far too late. Jonin 6 and 7 began to gather their surroundings, hands weaving in perfect unison, a double futon. Diatapa, great breakthrough, which would form wind style. Tremendous clearing, able to dissemble all but the sturdiest buildings. But Kasuke smirked, launched himself airborne and in mid-air flipped and launched out his prosthetic limb. The hidden blade was concealed where the fibula connected with his ankle. The needle blade penetrated the base of the throat and the Jonin fell backwards, gurgling for breath as blood began pouring out. The other Jonin tried to help but found his body going one way and his the other. As for Jonin 8 and the veteran a swift Oten. Dorodomu. The pair were engulfed in the hungry earth, followed by Doten. Iwayado Kuzushi. The dome collapsed, killing the two Jonin inside of it. They don't the Jonin like they used. Lord Second, please forgive me for my brashness. Kasuke murmured, he said the prayer every time after he had killed someone. He still judged himself harshly for a mistake he had made all those years ago. Stadium, Yugao ducked, channeled chakra into his sword and calmly bisected 3 Odo shinobi. He replaced himself with another only for him to receive an explosive tag to the chest. Humans and explosive tags don't mix. Then again, shinobi jutsu effects on humans tend not to mix on principle. Naruto-kun, well done in the exams. Naruto nodded, he ducked, replaced himself and drove his blades into an Odo shinobi. Oh, fuck. My first actual kill, first of many. Naruto thought to himself as he ended 3 more shinobi. Kakashi watched with slight concern as Sasuke charged into battle, his fire jutsu expelled with every other breath. You and I are going to have a chat after this is sorted out. Naruto, I need you to take out Subaku no Gaara, he's a Jinchuriki. Sasuke, I need you to take out Subaku no Gaara, he's a Jinchuriki. Dope. Wait. Growled Sasuke, his eyes shimmering red from his Sharingan. What? Sasuke used that moment to rush ahead to try and gain ground on the fleeing Sand siblings. Naruto sighed. Sasuke, orders are to take out Subaku no Gaara. We want him alive, he's the son of a cage. As are his teammates. Sasuke snorted. I was told to stop Subaku no Gaara and his team at all costs. Sand trio. Damari, take Gaara and go, I can still buy you time. Said Kankuro. He jumped back onto a branch and unfurled his puppet. It's the puppet user. Growled Sasuke, his clan's battle lust making his voice sound a little bit unstable. Naruto, you deal with him. No. I'll deal with him. Sasuke turned around to see Aburame Shino catch up with them. He's my opponent and I will deal with him. Shino said calmly as he pulled out a pair of kunai. Naruto and Sasuke nodded and they carried on. Kankuro vs Shino. Shino watched calmly as he released his insects and he observed Kankuro's finger movements and understood that the variety of gestures corresponded to the vast multitude of characteristics of the puppet. This is going to be interesting. Shino thought. Not once did he think that he had bitten off more than he could chew with this particular opponent. Shino was like his clan, extremely analytic. However, Shino was more analytic than most and knew that he was acting in a selfish manner. Naruto could have easily taken out this person, allowing for Shino and Sasuke to take down the other two. Shino's insects began to emerge from his coat sleeves and began to cover his arms in a form of a maur. An armor of chittering insects, clutching his kunai, he was ready. He had begun to learn the basics of combining his insects with shuriken jutsu and he hoped to extend to kenjutsu. But first things first, he needed to come out of this fight alive. I am a member of the Hidden Leaf Village, Aburame clan. When we fight, no matter how puny our opponent is, we do not mock them. We face them with full strength. The words unsettled Kankuro, he grunted and snarled, bring him on. The insects flurried and Shino moved along his tree branch, Kankuro twitched, and as did Crow. This was the result of two strategic fighters fighting. It was little jutsu flashy but more analytical and bluffing. The Aburame are good, but the Nara have mastered the art. Kankuro flicked his wrist and Crow launched forwards. Suddenly the wooden arm extended, revealing a needle in the wrist. Shino jumped to the side and the needle containing poison dispersed it onto the tree branch and stuck fast. Kankuro was surprised. He glowered and struck again. Shino was ready. He dodged, ducked and jumped over the puppet and vanished into the undergrowth, leaving the puppet stuck in the tree. It's no use. Murmured Kankuro as his fingers began to dance. Subsequently the puppet pulled away from the tree, descended and revealed its mouth weapon and chest blades. Deep in the bushes, Shino watched, he chucked his kunai, they stuck home. One in the chest, in the center of the blades and the other between its 3 eyes. It was enveloped in smoke. The substitution. Shino launched himself upwards, dodging the arms. As he landed on the branch, Kankuro grinned, you are making this too easy. With that 2 kunai launched themselves from the center of the puppet's mouth. The attacks hit home. Kankuro grinned, but the grin turned into a stare of horror as Shino dissolved. Damn bugs, he was pulled out of his thoughts as Shino appeared behind him. Kankuro narrowly avoided the punch to his head. From his crouched position he jumped backwards, gaining the much needed distance. You created a bunch out of those bugs and snuck up behind me, not too bad. Kankuro admitted, he was not one to give out praise, but when he did it was genuine. Simple really, I could tell from your jutsu that you prefer long-range attacks and close combat is not your strongest area. Furthermore, you have to focus all of your chakra and attention into controlling that puppet of yours. That results in a gap in your defenses. Thanks for the dissertation. I'm just getting started here. Replied Kankuro. Don't worry, if you want to see how dangerous my jutsu is. You're in for a real treat with it. The chakra strings appeared and reconnected with Crow. Besides, Crow has been playing nice. The arm snapped open and an explosion was emitted. Shino's bugs leapt to attention, forming a massive wall and muffling the explosion. Poison smoke bomb. Shino went on one knee, must have inhaled some. Ninja art. Bug adaptation. Shino's breathing stabilized as his bugs went to work. Meanwhile, the attacker hides and waits for it to take hold. Kankuro observed his opponent from the bushes. Time to finish it. Crow floated up menacingly behind Shino. Shino spun around and the puppet attacked, a full-length kunai revealed, it punched straight through another bug clone. "What?" exclaimed Kankuro, popping his head out of his hiding spot. He was too shocked to remember to keep his head down. Outsider point of view, Izuki Hari, Saratobi Asuma and Inyazuka Tien watched concealed in the trees. Hari had purchased several goats and promptly opened their stomachs for the bezzers in the stomach. The natural chakra of goats made the bezzer very good at neutralizing the poisons used by Suna. He should not moving with that poison in him. Then he saw it. A faint trickle of insects. High above the clone, Shino was crouched sweating bullets as he unleashed his insects, and they worked to neutralize the poison in his system. The poison was hindering him, but not as much. It would take some time to become immune to it. Crow floated up. "Let me put you out of your misery." "What?" Crow would not move. Kankuro flexed again. "What's going on?" Panic had entered his voice. "What the hell is going on?" He then saw the bugs erupting from Crow's joints. "It's no use. He's kindling now," thought Shino in satisfaction as his insects began feasting on the wood and the chakra. Kankuro severed his chakra strings, he had began to feel their influence. "He doesn't know I can re-establish the strings in a blink of an eye. All of Crow is a lethal weapon, that's what makes puppeteers so dangerous." Crow's head separated and came in for an attack. Shino looked in horror as another poisoned needle came burrowing towards him. Suddenly it stopped. "What the hell is going on?" thought Kankuro. Everything he had done had been circumvented by his opponent. Shino jumped onto the branch, his breathing labored from exhaustion, not from the poison, just as Kankuro dropped out his hiding place, covered in insects. "But how?" "I made sure to sever the chakra strings." "I don't understand." "You were anticipating the attack from the front. You forgot about the swarm attacking you from the rear. All this time they've been slowly closing in on you, drawn to your headband." "What? Drawn to what?" shrieked Kankuro. "Your headband. I intentionally missed when I swung at you. I placed a beetle on your headband, a female one to be precise. Its pheromones drew a swarm of males towards you." Kankuro shrieked and fell to the floor of the forest as Shino collapsed. "It looks like I'm done." As he went to pass out, 3 jonin dropped out the trees. "Shino, get this down you." Shino opened his mouth, found a stone being shoved down his throat, the position seemed to fade almost immediately. "How?" "Bezer, you did well. Chunin Tien, Asuma, get him back to his clan. Tell Aburame-sama that he's been given a bezer." Sasuke and Naruto, the pair had gained on the remaining Sand siblings. "Sasuke, we want them alive." "I don't care. It's war. I'm going to kill them." "Kaiten. Kakaku no Jutsu." A ginormous fireball erupted from his mouth and it sailed across at the siblings. A sand shield appeared around Gaara and Temari. It retracted and Gaara took off. "I'll take the girl," Naruto stated. Sasuke smirked. "Because you'll lose to the other one?" "No, so when you die, I have maximum deniability that I did not knife you in the back." Temari vs Naruto. Temari stared down Naruto. "You're not getting past me." Naruto sighed. "Any chance I can get you to surrender?" Temari snorted. "No, your friend will lose to Gaara. Considering I know what your brother is, I'm the worst person you could be facing." Temari's stomach dropped. "You're like Gaara. A Jinchuriki." Naruto smiled. "Fox-like, yep. Please just surrender." "Beat this." Temari unfurled her fan and unleashed a vicious tornado that took Naruto off his feet and onto the next branch. Penten. Ignition. The sheath technique created the spark and the tornado became a firestorm. Futen. Diatapa. Temari swung her fan and the 2 wind techniques collided viciously and the firestorm intensified. Naruto pulled off his jacket, he needed to prevent himself from cooking alive. The fire would evaporate his water supply, toad oil would likely bring the whole forest down. Temari caught a glimpse of Naruto, she liked what she saw. She noticed the markings on the arms and chest. The one on the chest was much like the one Gaara had on his back, where the center point of the seal to contain the Jinchuriki were. Izuki Hari. Hari jumped backwards as he felt the shockwave and saw the forest subsequently erupt into flames. Naruto's against a wind user and he goes for fire smart. Now to see what happens next. Fire style. Phoenix flower jutsu. Naruto called, spitting a salvo of fireballs at Temari, who effortlessly dropped into the ring of them. Temari smirked, but the smirk became a look of horror as 4 Narutos appeared and 3 of them formed the hand seals for Gaara's most potent wind attack, the Futen. Renkuden. Surrender. Temari dropped her fan. "I give." Hari managed to join them. "I heard Genma say that you blamed the pretty girls, can't disagree. She's a cage daughter." "She surrendered." Hari nodded. "I'll get her back to the village." 1 second. Hari formed a seal and a tremendous chakra was felt. Particle style. Atomic dismantlement. That is a Keke Toda. Exclaimed Tamari. Hari grinned. It is an Iowa. Keke Todas have to start somewhere. Particle style is just finding the perfect balance between Doton, Futon and Kaiten. Now off we go. Sasuke vs Gaara. Sasuke collapsed on the tree branch. He was utterly worn out, his opponent was too damn tough. He had tanked his best attacks, even his Kaiten Ryuken no Jutsu had been put out. What made matters worse was that the jutsu Gaara retaliated with were either too seals or seal-less. A downside of the Sharingan was that it had to copy full hand seal sequences to truly copy a jutsu. He had even tried the Chidori twice, and now the sand was creeping up around him. His sealed curse mark throbbed, trying to release its chakra into his body. I can give you the power you desire. That sealed it. Sasuke desired the curse mark, and the evil sealing method broke. Konoha. Orochimaru turned to flee. He was in pain, his bastard of a teacher had sealed his arms away, but it seemed Sasuke had cracked and released his present. Now he had to think of way to extract him. Sasuke vs Gaara. The marks covered his face, he growled and formed another Chidori. Gyuten Diatapa. Kaiten. Fireball Jutsu. Sasuke suddenly found himself free. He snarled and all his control went out the window, he would kill both of them. Kaiten. Ryuin Hoka no Jutsu. Sasuke exhaled 3 massive purple dragon flame bullets. One aimed at Gaara, one at Naruto and the other intending on setting the forest on fire. However, Naruto and a half-demonic-looking Gaara made the exact same jutsu Futon Renkiden. However, Naruto added 3 extra seals, Futon Renkiden Dangan. Unlike the arena where Sasuke had got clear, as had the other two. No one expected the following. Sasuke took cover as the bullets of wind collided like gunshots. He snarled and the seal that had restricted his curse mark, that had assisted his willpower degraded. Now it was his own willpower. Sasuke, like all the other Uchiha before him, possessed incredible visual prowess and firebug tendencies, but at the cost of failing to see what was in front of them. As a result, for such clear-sighted vision, it made them incredibly blind. All Sasuke would have to do was ask for assistance, and the village would pull out all the jutsu, legal and illegal for a genin to know and would teach him. But, Sasuke especially possessed a weakness to raw power, only amplified by an inferiority complex which came from being the younger brother of a prodigy. The curse mark flame-like markings began to run down his arm. He ran through seals of his quickly becoming his favorite lightning jutsu, he had used it twice, and now this would be third attempt. Chidori. Screamed Sasuke and he launched himself at Naruto. Sand tail. Gaara's semi-human sand demon body tail whipped Sasuke effortlessly out the air and into a tree. The lightning attack effortlessly cancelled out. No one takes my kills. It growled. Naruto used that momentum to move away as he quickly went over his arsenal when he thought of something incredible. Incredibly stupid and risky, but it was better than nothing. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. The clone materialized and bounced to the Uchiha, grabbed him and took off to get away out of the blast area. I don't know any barrier seals to lock us in, fuck it. Fuin Jutsu. Release. Gaara was not stupid. A side effect of coming from a village not known for its Huinjutsu meant very likely instability may occur. Add in a psycho and sociopathic Biju and you have a recipe for disaster. However, due to the literal aforementioned socio-psychopathic voice in his head talking to him constantly did cause him on occasion to miss small things. The thing he forgot was that Naruto used Huinjutsu. Naruto smirked as the oil hit the forest floor. Huinjutsu. Spark. The blonde intoned dropping a scrap of paper onto the oil. Konohinin. The Konohinin who were driving into the sound and Suna shinobi forces who were fighting in the forest had managed to put out the majority of the fires that had been sprouting all over the place. Jiraiya saw Yuzuki Hari and a clone of Naruto crash down in front of them. With them were one Subaku no Tamari and Uchiha Sasuke. I'm still fighting Gaara. Sasuke tried to intervene only to be smacked around by Gaara. The clone said, dropping the unconscious Uchiha at their feet before popping. Izuki, what happened? Demanded Anko. Aburam Shino engaged Subaku no Kankuro and won. Aburam is recovering due to the use of a bezer. Uzumaki Naruto, according to Tamari-san here, had to fight the Uchiha in order for him to take her prisoner. However, Tamari ambushed them. Uchiha buggered off and Uzumaki Naruto fought her and won. I intervened as they caused a forest fire and required my gift. To get them out. Decapitation death wall. Screamed several sound shinobi. Hari groaned, someone catch my body. Particle style. Dismantling pillar. A thick pillar appeared engulfing 3 of the 8 attacking shinobi, a simple move of the interlinked fingers quickly erased the other 5 from existence. Hari collapsed to one knee, sweat pouring down his face. He coughed and vomited blood, minor, bleeding. At my limit. Body not yet locking, here we go. Tamari grabbed Hari as he hit the floor, 3 Jonin went to react, we'll take the 3 back to Konoha. Yuzuki Hari, one of the best we have. One of them said, and with that they bounded back to Konoha. The remaining shinobi winced, the temperature had suddenly hiked and they hurted. The sound of maniacal laughter. Onward my Chikates. Into the twilight zone with the alien sage Jiraiya. Boomed the older ninja as he charged towards the source of firestorm. Naruto vs Gaara. The flames roared and over the flames Naruto saw Gaara, scrabbling away from the flames' grand emergence no jutsu. Playing possum. I'm out bitches. Naruto stared at the monstrosity seriously. Kuchius no jutsu. Naruto had signed the summoning contract and was becoming relatively skilled with it. Due to his chakra-intensive fights, he was almost running on fumes. He slammed his palm down and he was enveloped in smoke. Who summoned me? Jiraiya. Rumbled the massive magenta toad. No, I did. Uzumaki Naruto Jiraiya had me sign the contract. The toad nodded. Okay, runt. I'll help just this once. Then he saw the Ichibi fucking blonde minions and their fascination for fighting Biju. That caught Naruto off guard. You've fought a Biju before. Yeah, my leg and ass still hurt from the burns the Kyuubi gave me, now this one seems much easier. But that the toad and summoner engaged the Ichibi and its container. The gigantic toad exhaled a massive water blast, which quickly became a widespread rainstorm which began to slowly put out the fire surrounding the evidently terrified Ichibi. The Ichibi retaliated with more concentrated wind orbs, which even though Naruto and Gamabunta, the toad had quickly introduced himself as they avoided a larger than normal wind bullet. We need to henge something with claws and teeth. I'm no good at it. Gamabunta growled as he slashed through the Ichibi's paw. Naruto nodded, he thought of the fox and yelled henge. Jutsu. Lockdown chains. Thundered another voice. It was Jiraiya. Jiraiya came bounding into combat on the back of a turquoise-colored toad equipped with two massive katana. The technique he used was a powerful sealing technique known to the Uzumaki clan. It wasn't an Uzumaki blood technique, but one commonly used by them to trap vast amounts of chakra or chakras. Shukaku had no chance. The chains of sealing erupted around the sand Biju, trapping it in place. This allowed for Naruto to deliver a very effective dropkick into Gaara's head. Both boys clattered to the ground. The fire had been put out, leaving vast amounts of waterlogged and or muddy ground to land on and in. I'm at my limit. Panted Naruto as he groaned. Yup, something's cracked and broken. My pride is one of them. As are you. We're a lot alike, you and I. The pair got to their feet and they launched themselves at each other as the massive tanto of the toad boss vanished. Gaara snarled as he launched himself forwards, fist cocked back, teeth bared and snarling in rage. Naruto got into Gaara's face and with a scrappy hook, caught him square in the face. As the pair lay on the ground, Naruto began crawling forwards as memories flooded into his mind. Memories he had tried to repress. How are you so strong? How do you find a reason to exist? My reason for existence is with my few true friends. For them to live, I will never give up. But why? Why save them? Panted Gaara, his opponent was making logical sense. They saved me from myself. 8 pairs of feet hit the deck as Yuzuki Hari, Jiraiya, Yuzuki Yugao and Heiei Gekko landed in the clearing. Gekko had been replaced by Yumino Roku, one of the many relatives of Yumino Ruka, and third in infiltration with only Gekko and Jiraiya surpassing him. Roku was also one of the few who possessed any skill in Kenjutsu and had died trying to subdue Baki. He had made it to an Anbu patrol and informed them of the fight before dying. That was one of the few reasons the Leaf managed a ramshackle defense which turned into a brilliant offense. Easy, we got you. Hari said as his helped him pull Naruto to his feet. Jiraiya and Gekko lifted Gaara. Where are my siblings? In prison of VIP where you'll be joining them after I've sorted out your seal. Jiraiya growled. Naruto passed out on the journey back to the village. 3 days later, Naruto woke to find Kakashi in his living room, sprawled out on his shitty second-hand couch. Morning sensei. Kakashi woke up morning, have to say out of second-hand sofas that is not the best one I've ever slept on. Why were you here? Looking after you, much like the old times. The old times? Naruto asked curiously. Myself, Yugao, Hari and a few others kept an eye on you whilst you were a kid. We brought you food when it was hard for you to get some amongst other things. Thanks sensei. Breakfast. What's the plan? How long have I been out? 3 days. You did good. Actually you did amazing. You managed to bring in 2 of the 3 children of the Kazukiage alive and unharmed relatively. Relatively? Gaara's face has 2 size 4 sandal bruises on his faces which coincidentally were gained 3 days ago when you were the last one recorded to be fighting him. Naruto flushed. I suppose I need to apologize for that. Kakashi I smiled. You can do. The daughter has been released, she was most cooperative with us. Naruto nodded. Where is she being kept? Suna Embassy. The council want you to be the liaison between us and her. Show her around the village, go with her wherever she wants to go. She is to never be anything more than 2 meters from you. You will receive backup when it comes available. Naruto nodded. What are we going to do sensei? We lost a comrade. I think Sasuke is going to try something stupid. Kakashi nodded. You leave Sasuke to me now. Go. It is not polite to keep a lady waiting. Damari had just left the embassy as Naruto arrived. Uzumaki-san. Subaku-san, how are you? Temari grinned slightly, coping, waiting to find out the terms of surrender from Suna. Hopefully they will bargain for the return of my brothers, and is there anywhere where we can get some food? Naruto nodded. Several, but not many will let me in due to. Temari's eyes widened. Let me deal with that. Daughter of a cage does have some perks. But first of all, do you have anything other than black and blue? Naruto snorted. I've got some bright kill me orange. Temari's eyes widened. No. I'd rather remain in the embassy than be seen with you in that. Naruto grinned. Then you have to cope with me looking like I've been punched in. Temari giggled. She honestly thought out of all the people escorting her she had done badly. She knew and he knew that she was technically a prisoner. As they headed towards the clothing area, they ran into Yamanaka Ino and Hyuga Hinata. Subaku no Temari. We're Genin. Yamanaka Ino and Hyuga Hinata. Heiresses to two of Konohagakure no Sato's more prominent clans. You're working with me. Said Naruto, making his presence known. You. Turn. Naruto flared his kai, and both his teammates shut up. Shut it. Hada Kakashi informed me of this the moment I woke up from chakra drainage. Furthermore, I am familiar with the prisoner considering I fought her, ergo, I'm in charge. Ino put any thought of trying to usurp Naruto to rest. However, I may need your assistance. What for? Your squad leader has very little for clothing save shinobi gear in colors other than black and blue and did mention he had some orange kill me jumpsuits. You owe me, Naruto. Groused Ino. Naruto shrugged. You two know who else is supposed to. Yes, me. The Genin turned to see Yamino Ruka joining them. Genin Uzumaki, Hyuga and Yamanaka, who is at this point in time squad leader. Questioned Ruka. Junin Yamino, I Genin Uzumaki lead the team at this current point in time. Based on previous experience with the prisoner and first one at the embassy, I succeed my position to you. Iruka took command of the squad and Ino did not try a single thing. They entered the clothing store and left with Naruto having a few sets of clothes not in black and blue. Naruto nonchalantly sealed the clothes away. What? When and how long have you been able to do that? Demanded Ino. A while. You never actually liked me, in fact you borderline hated my guts. Naruto snapped. Naruto, a quick word. Iruka said. First time working with two Kunoichi. Let them scorn you, no point in trying to fight it, also this infighting it doesn't paint a good picture of Konoha. Naruto nodded. Always displayed the good image regardless. With it they joined the Temari and the other two Genin. Naruto, have you heard? Temari and her brother were put with their other brother as they are the only two who could somewhat control him. Yes, I know. I have to say, the brother in question was quite literally a juggernaut. How could you have beaten him? We heard Sasuke-kun was to take him down. Snapped Ino. Ah no, perhaps SS Sasuke was defeated before going against the brother. I can't do the Hinata stutter. Imagine it. Naruto nodded. Sasuke got his bloodthirst up, he was disregarding orders to take Temari and her brothers alive. I intervened in the fight between Temari and Sasuke and she deftly handled us. I persuaded Sasuke to fight the juggernaut brother. Temari knew that this was somewhat deviant from the truth, but still close enough. I hit them with my second and strongest Futon Jutsu. But this one shrugged off the second and used the first to set off a firestorm, to the point his sensei had to use his Kekkei Toda to save us. Kakashi has a Kekkei Toda. No, Yuzuki Hari Kakashi is okay for a sensei, but Yuzuki Hari sensei is the one I attribute the majority of my training to. Anyway, we're here, one of the best BBQ places in Konoha if that's what you would prefer. Temari nodded, however the five of them ran into a complication. We don't serve the likes of him. Snapped the waiter, pointing at Naruto. Naruto's temper snapped. Weren't you at the fights? The man nodded. I also assume you wagered heavily against me that I would be beaten by Hyuga Niji. Another nod. Then you were almost killed in the crush and were saved. Another nod. I saved your life. This was met with grudging nods and people admitting that Naruto had saved them. The man bowed at the waist. My apologies, Uzumaki-san, for my words and judgments. Please feel free to eat here whenever you wish. Naruto smiled. No problem. Inside, Naruto was jumping for joy. It was a small start, but it was progress. My instructions of my parole allow me to go everywhere and anywhere, but I require an escort. Is it possible for us to train? Naruto and Temari found themselves making a relatively decent friends. Well, as friendly as warden and prisoner can be, and as well as the daughter of Cage and a village outcast could be. They had fallen into a routine. Temari would drag Naruto all over Konoha, investigating it and finding the nice eateries and getting Naruto in. Whilst Naruto would help hone Temari's skills. Temari was a long-range fighter and used her fan to conduct her Futon Jutsu, compared to Naruto, who used kunai and swords to conduct his wind affinity. But soon enough, Naruto and his team were rotated out and a team of Chunin were brought in to watch over her. Naruto had been on C-rank missions with Sasuke and a new Kunoichi, and due to the Kunoichi's inexperience of dealing with Naruto and Sasuke, the personal vendetta between the two genin had nearly foiled the missions. Although the Kunoichi noticed that it was Sasuke who was starting the majority of the confrontations, there was still a massive stigma against Naruto. However, as Naruto had gotten dressed to go and train with Temari, Jiraiya had turned up at his door. Gaki. The council has given me a mission. Naruto nodded. You want me to come with you? Jiraiya nodded. We're getting the goddamn Tsunade. It's not that hard to work out. Soon enough Jiraiya and Naruto had packed up and were heading out of the village going somewhere. It was Tamari. Tamari-sen, I have a mission. So I won't be around for a bit. Tamari nodded. Be safe. Naruto smirked dryly. I can only do my best. The pair left the village and traveled in silence until it was out of sight. Naruto, I'm going to teach you a jutsu, and it is a pretty cool one. Naruto was hooked and Jiraiya handed him a water balloon. You need to pop this by spinning your chakra. Naruto nodded. The balloon convulsed but did not pop. He carried on. Hari had not taught him about chakra flow and rotational patterns. They had passed 3 towns and Naruto had just managed to pop one balloon. How's it going? Not too good. I get you need to spin your chakra, but I don't get how. It's something I don't know. Jiraiya nodded. Okay, are you right or left-handed? Right-handed. Spin your chakra to the left. Use your left hand, get used to it in your weaker hand, and then do it in your dominant hand. With that the water balloons began to pop like crazy. Jiraiya nodded. Minato, your son is no genius, but he has more grit and determination than anyone I've met. He'll go far. He thought to himself as he remembered Minato teaching him how to do it. Naruto, stop for now. Here we are. Tenzaku Town, gambling central in Hai no Kuni. Casino. Shizune was a pretty woman standing at 5'5" with dark gray eyes that looked black in a certain light and wore a black hospital kimono, showing that she was a senior apprentice, held onto a pig wearing a chain of pearls. Tsunade-sama, you've won enough to clear up 2/3 of your debts, it's a good sign. The woman she stood over wore a green jacket with a kanji for gambler on it, high heels, old shinobi pants and a shirt bindings that struggled to conceal her massive cleavage. I have a bad feeling about this. First Orochimaru wants me to heal his arms. What's going to happen next? Hotel. Naruto had gotten up from the bed he was resting in when he heard a knock on the door. Who? What? His words failed him as he recognized Itachi. Fuck. He slammed the door shut, dived into the room as the shark man sliced the door down with ease. Please come with us. Demanded Itachi. Shuriken Taiju Ukage Bunshin no Jutsu. Replied Naruto as he grabbed his stuff and dived out the window. In midair slowly descending was a flash tag. It went off. Fuck that. I'm shaving the little bastard's legs and arms. Thundered the shark man as he jumped out the window. Kiss him. No maiming him. Snapped the Itachi. Crap, this is bad, very bad. Very bad indeed. Naruto thought as he was backed into a corner. They were good, they had easily boxed him in. As the 2 men entered the alleyway, Naruto found it hard to miss the singed cloth and slight burns that they possessed. His thoughts were cut off as the alleyway dissolved as Jiraiya shouted summoning jutsu. Great Fire Toad Esophagus. The alleyway had turned into a massive esophagus. Naruto Gaki, don't panic and most importantly don't move. This is the gullet of the Great Fire Toad, these 2 punks have no chance of escape. Crowed Jiraiya, but it was short-lived as Itachi's eyes changed and with a murmured word, black flames burst out of them and the 2 shinobi ran out. Fuin Jutsu. Kaiten level 9 ceiling. Fuin. Groaned Jiraiya as he sealed the flames away, but it did enough to release the jutsu. We will get you Uzumaki. Naruto shouted. Kiss him, the man's name had been mentioned at some point. Probably when Naruto had hit him in the face with a chili bomb as they fled the esophagus-returned alleyway. Tsunade stared at the sake bottle. Shizune stiffened. As was Tsunade, but the slug sage didn't show it. They had felt the fight break out, didn't hear the voices of those involved. Soon enough the door opened and she heard a voice rumbled. Tsunade Haim. Tsunade looked up and surprisingly there stood Jiraiya and a blonde kid that reminded Tsunade strongly of the Yondaime. Jiraiya's second teammate I've seen in the past 8 hours. Tsunade said calmly before turning to Shizune. Leave us, take the short one with you. Naruto bristled at the remark. Jiraiya, this old bat is gonna be the Hokage. Dear Kami, help us. Tsunade's eyes narrowed. You think I'm going to be a bad Hokage? I'm half tempted to take the seat and make you see for yourself. I don't want the seat, so bugger off. Naruto sighed. If not, then I'll have to kick your ass and drag you back to Konoha myself. My stasis seals should be able to hold you. Tsunade cracked the sake bottle. Jiraiya grinned nervously. All right brat, outside. I may be out of shape, but I'll teach you a lesson. Tsunade Haim, for my sake don't kill him. I won't. But he will hurt. Naruto and Tsunade faced each other in the street. You kick my ass and I'll become Hokage. Naruto nodded. Tsunade made the gesture of come and get some. Naruto rushed forwards. At first Shizune was startled. She hadn't seen a genin move that fast initially. Naruto feinted with a direct attack. Tsunade nodded. This one had some skill. She aptly moved slightly and managed to dodge one Kage Bunshin. She punched another. She used her leg to block Naruto's abdomen kick. Naruto's eyes widened at the flexibility Tsunade displayed. He replaced himself with a kunai with flash tag. It went off. Naruto materialized behind Tsunade, who counter-replaced him with a log. Naruto suddenly found himself flying down the street. He hit the floor with his shoulder, spun, went shoulders over feet, head over heels and crumpled a metal skip. Naruto created 2 clones, which pulled him out of the ruined skip. He disappeared in a whirl of leaves and reappeared, lashing out with a reverse heel high kick aimed at Tsunade's head. Tsunade ducked, then had to throw her body backwards to swoop low under the reverse kick. She chuckled as Naruto planted his foot and used the momentum to launch himself into a flip leading into a dropkick. She blocked the kick and as Naruto backflipped to land on his feet, Tsunade struck. Tsunade possessed a major lightning affinity and had practiced a decent understanding of earth and water. She had mainly combined her Doton into her fighting style, mainly to harden her body. She slammed her foot on the ground and the ground launched Naruto towards her. Naruto saw her 2 fingers curl up and suddenly he was planted into the floor, cleanly unconscious. Tsunade wiped her hands down. He did well. Jiraiya nodded. Pure Taijutsu not his strongest. He's much better with a blade in his hands. He also didn't want to cause mass property damage. How bad is he injured? Concussion, possibly bruised ribs and back. So he could practice the Rasengan. Tsunade stopped. He's their son. Jiraiya nodded. Village treated him like shit. His teacher was Yuzuki Hari, sensei had a Kakashi. Hari taught him more than Kakashi, but then again Kakashi had his own orders. Tsunade nodded. He has a week to learn the Rasengan, and I'll take up the cage mantle, although, Jiraiya, I already am tempted to. Naruto groaned and found himself in a hotel room, next to him was Shizune. She was sleeping in the chair, she jolted awake as Naruto stirred. What were you thinking? Wasn't I've grown up with respect for the Hokage to hear her talking shit about them. Shizune nodded. Tsunade was impressed by you, says she has a bet. You are to get the jutsu, Jiraiya-sama has begun to teach you, and she'll take up the mantle. Naruto found himself in a sewer. He was up to his ankles in dirty water. In front of him was a set of massive gates, and where the lock would be was a shard of paper that read seal. So, my jailer has come to visit. A deep bass gravelly voice rumbled. Naruto looked and found himself looking into bright blood-red eyes that resembled a wolf's. No, not a wolf, a fox. Naruto breathed. The being chuckled, it sounded like boulders grating on each other, so the jailer recognizes the tenant. Naruto gulped. His sensei had briefed him on his duty of being a Jinchuriki. He knew exactly who this was, but it still didn't make the encounter any less brown pant worthy. Hari sensei would have it. I know. Kyuubi. The fox chuckled, your teachers have taught you well. I was half expecting to see you when we fought Shukaku the One-Tail. The ugly sand thing. Naruto nodded, but we didn't. The fox chuckled. Exactly, you are a lot smarter than I thought as well. Naruto nodded. Why? Why am I here? Why now? I have something I need to do. The Kyuubi chuckled. I know, Gaki, I want to make a deal with you. That is, tear off the seal. Let me out and I will spare your village and yourself. No. The fox shrugged. Worth a try. Due to how strong you are, I am willing to work with you. Naruto nodded. That would entail. I will allow you up to 3 taels worth of my chakra on the condition that you slacken the seal, so I can see what you see, taste what you taste. I want my senses back. Up to 3 taels of your chakra at my disposal whenever I wish and you get my senses. Yes. I'll even stop messing with your chakra control. But that the deal was made. Naruto woke up to find a scroll on his beside cabinet that read, Baki, off to do research. Here are the steps for a new jutsu. Point 1. Spin your chakra until you pop the water balloon. Point 2. Burst the rubber ball with raw chakra harder than at LOOKS 3. Put it together. PS channel chakra into letter to get balloons. Naruto sighed and tenderly pulled himself out of bed. His battered body had healed overnight. He stretched, got dressed and headed out of the room and out of town to train. He found a small clearing and he activated the scroll. Naruto grabbed a balloon and he concentrating. He could feel the water beginning to rotate. It took a while, but eventually the balloon popped. Naruto sighed and he grabbed another balloon. Flashback. Naruto was performing the leaf-cutting exercise when Hari-sensei stopped him. You learned the Kage Bunshin jutsu, yeah? Naruto nodded. Yeah, why? Hari sighed. The Kage Bunshin technique is really useful. You may have realized that you can retain the information it gives. Naruto's eyes widened. Yeah, Jiraiya's dropkick really hurt. If I remembered correctly, I was nowhere near him. Hari nodded. Yep. You learn what it learns. It's shit when it comes to physical stuff. But chakra control. Naruto grinned. Since shadow clones are chakra constructs, I'll be able to use them to improve my control, and thus any techniques that require good chakra control. Very good, Gaki. Keep in mind you'll never be able to do Jinjutsu or medical jutsu that well. Then flashback. Kaiju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. With that, thousands of clones erupted into existence. Unbeknownst to Shizune, who had a keen sense of runaway patience. She had followed Naruto to the training ground. Her jaw dropped as Naruto performed the Kage Bunshin. She was even more impressed at the fact that Naruto was utilizing the clones to help him perfect his chakra control. The clones dispelled, Shizune watched as Naruto plucked up one of the remaining balloons, concentrate and the balloon popper. He repeated the process to ensure it wasn't a fluke. She watched as he then removed some rubber balls and began to repeat the process. The ball stretched, twisted but refused to break. Naruto collapsed to one knee and promptly keeled over. The next 2 days were like this. Each day thousands of clones were constructed. Every time over the 2 days the rubber balls twisted, contorted, stretched a little bit more. Eventually it happened. Naruto sighed. He was popping balloons like it was no one's business, but the bloody rubber ball refused shred. Also observing Naruto and Shizune was Jiraiya. Rather it was a reinforced Jiraiya Cage Bunshin. The actual Jiraiya was hanging out with Tsunade reminiscing about the old times and telling her what had been happening. Despite Tsunade's blustering, she was interested in the fate of her childhood home. Naruto felt it. Suddenly the ball was nowhere to be seen. He looked at his other clones to watch as they shredded their own rubber balls. Naruto grinned. As he shredded 3 on his own. I've done it now to put it together. Naruto grabbed a water balloon, he concentrated. He felt the water beginning to spin. Faster, faster, faster now burst. Naruto snarled mentally. The balloon burst but the shape completely and utterly collapsed. Naruto repeated the process twice more but then eventually collapsed. Tsunade headed grinned. It had been 3 days. 3 days since she had seen Orochimaru, Jiraiya and his apprentice. It had been 3 days since she had thrashed said brat and given him that challenge. Has he given up yet? Jiraiya chuckled as he stepped out the shadows. That was the main thing that unnerved her about the Toad Sannin. Jiraiya was powerful, as were both Orochimaru and herself. Only Sarutobi knew that the Toad and Snake Sannin could not hold a candle to Jiraiya if he really got going. Everyone knew that Jiraiya was good with toads and used seals. But what caught people off guard was just how skilled he was combining his seals and ninjutsu together. This skill was passed on and surpassed by Namikaze Minato. What made Jiraiya arguably the strongest of the Sannin was not what he knew, but rather how it was applied. Orochimaru was a ninjutsu expert and Tsunade was a medic nin. To combat them it was simple, rush the former and injure so many of the latter's comrades that she could not bring her formidable building, dropping finger flicks towards her enemies. In order to do that they would have to cross a who knows how and who knows what with minefield of few ninjutsu traps, coupled with an all but invisible Jiraiya that required ninjutsu that saw chakra and sensory ninja to detect him. Unfortunately the clan of those requirements were on Jiraiya's side. Then to pry Jiraiya out of his objectives and mindset required a Krober or Emnasan, as trait that was evidently inherited. He really is their son isn't he? Jiraiya grunted more skilled than I had thought he was going to be. I owe Yuzukihari a lot far too much. The hatred from the village towards Naruto is immense, I fear Naruto may not be a Konohinin for much longer. Tsunade's eyes widened. Why hasn't anyone told the village? Naruto's not ready. Besides, should Naruto be exiled from the village, I suspect Danzo will make a play for both Yuzukihari and Uzumaki Naruto. Tsunade nodded. Then first things first, let us deal with our traitorous teammate and then I'll play for as much time I can give Naruto to get him into a position of power. By your will Hokage-sama. I'm going to need to train Naruto hands-on for a while. Tsunade nodded. Naruto, it was day 4. Shizune watched transfixed as Naruto was manipulating his chakra and in such quantities that it should have cracked his coils. Naruto-kun, enough. Naruto looked up as the clone vanished and the orb stabilized. There was a sound of chakra layers grinding against each other. He turned and drove it into the tree. There was the sound of bark and trunk grinding and breaking and soon enough there was a perfect hole in the middle of it. Yada. Now, to do it with my right hand. Shizune grabbed him as a medical nin, I am telling you to rest. Naruto smirked, tensed as dizziness overtook him. He collapsed pulling off his jacket. Shizune helped him with his shirt and as she channeled chakra into her hands, her eyes widened when the seal appeared Jinchuriki. Shizune leapt backwards as Naruto pulled one of his blades. How do you know of that term? Tsunade-sama taught me everything she knew. She studied Fuinjutsu to see if it can be used in medical jutsu. Her grandmother Uzumaki Mito taught her and showed her that very seal, although not that detailed. It looks like something else is involved. I'm no expert, but I would say I would be a journeyman second-class Fuinjutsu wielder. Naruto nodded. As you know, I'm a Jinchuriki. Mine gives me rapid healing. From what I've been told, my chakra coils have been cracked, but they heal quickly. Same with physical injuries as well. Shizune nodded. Fair enough. Naruto held his right hand up and he repeated the exercise. Completing the exercises in his weaker hand had provided him with the necessary skills to do it in his right hand. However, the problem was still completing the jutsu of rotating the raw power into an orb. Shizune watched as 2 orbs appeared in his hands, wobbled and suddenly spiraled out of existence. Naruto-kun, what if you used one hand to rotate the chakra and the other hand to channel the chakra into it? Suggested Shizune. Naruto nodded and soon enough the orb of chakra appeared. As Naruto concentrated, the orb finally stabilized, he pulled his hand off the orb and to his surprise, it remained in existence. Rasengan. Another tree had an identical hole in it. Naruto grinned, he had learned the Rasengan, but he knew he had more work to do on it. such as make it one-handed in his left hand and in his right hand, then make different sizes of it and imbuing it with the elements. Naruto this time summoned a clone, and together they formed the Rasengan with the clone, creating the outer shell with Naruto stabilizing it and adding the raw power. Soon enough the Rasengan was stabilized and was driven into another tree, that's that. The other days passed relatively quickly. Naruto spent most of his time getting his ass handed to him by Jiraiya, Shizune and any of the toads that Jiraiya summoned to teach the new summoner the ropes. Tsunade and Jiraiya. On the night of the deadline, Jiraiya and Tsunade were sitting in a sake stand. It was a comfortable silence. Jiraiya however felt that he was missing something. He knew that Tsunade and he had discussed her becoming the cage, but he didn't believe that she would. Jiraiya knew that Tsunade was twice as stubborn as he was. Tsunade, if you take up Orochimaru's offer I will kill you both. Tsunade snorted. Orochimaru, yes, but me really? If you threaten Konoha then definitely. Tsunade grinned a secretive smile. She had everything under control. Next morning, Jiraiya groaned. He tried to mold chakra and he cursed. Tsunade had drugged him. First of all he needed to find his apprentice and Tsunade's attendant. Naruto had just woken up to find Shizune passed out outside. Apparently from how it looked, Tsunade had incapacitated her just outside the hotel room. Naruto, Shizune. Naruto had a blade out pointed at Jiraiya, who looked for the better term death warmed up. Soon enough a still hungover Jiraiya, a nervous Shizune and an excited Naruto rushed out of town. Tsunade stared down at her old friend. Tsunade's side he looked like a mess. His arms were a dark purple almost black and he seemed to be wincing every time he moved them. Possibly necrosis. Whatever sensei did to him was a number. So, you came, said Orochimaru. Let's get this done. Tsunade replied, her hands coated in blue chakra. It was time to end this. The bespectacled accomplice of Orochimaru's moved with sudden speed and using the chakra scalpel jutsu deflected the attack. Kabuto-kun, what have you done? It was no healing jutsu. Orochimaru cocked his head and looked at his subordinate. What do you mean? The jutsu you thought she was going to do wasn't going to repair your arms. It was going to kill you. It's a medical nin sensor trick. Orochimaru nodded and jumped backward. So, you've chosen the pathetic village then. Tsunade snarled and launched out with a salvo of crater-forming punches. Terrifying strength. Yup, definitely single. Kabuto thought as he saw craters appear just where he had been standing. Soon enough the fight spilled to the outskirts of the town. Orochimaru smirked as Kabuto rushed for the kill only for red smoke to explode in front of him. Kabuto fell back coughing. What was that? Those pepper, cayenne chill powder and garlic smoke bomb. Naruto said, grinning demonically at Kabuto. Tsunade, help Jiraiya, this one is mine. With that 2 blades appeared in his hands. Kabuto pushed his glasses up. Uzumaki. Naruto, not really worth my time. Naruto smiled coldly, we'll see, traitor. With that he rushed forwards and the distinctive howl of chakra conductive blades being coated in chakra reached Kabuto's ears. It was Kabuto's experience of being a shinobi that prevented him from becoming parted from his hands. Orochimaru's eyes widened at the use of wind chakra and the near severing of his second in command and healer's hand. Naruto holstered his blades fire style. Dragon flame jutsu. A torrent of fire roared out of Naruto's mouth. Kabuto rushed forwards his scalpels and with a firm tap caught Naruto underneath his sternum. Naruto stopped, coughed up blood and sank to his knees. Shizune's eyes widened, Tsunade's eyes widened and her body went into shock. One of her shinobi was bleeding, almost definitely fatally, and here she was at the mercy of her hemophobia. Shizune, get him stable. I'll deal with the pest. Jiraiya, take out Orochimaru. Shizune set to providing battlefield first aid to the downed blonde. Jiraiya rushed forwards, his reactions quickening by the moment, but he wasn't moving at the speed the Sannin were known for fighting at. Orochimaru lazily dodged, ducked, dipped, dived and weaved around Jiraiya's sluggish but powerful taijutsu attacks. Orochimaru snarled to himself, if sensei hadn't sealed off his arms, then this would have been over quickly. Kabuto jumped back to Orochimaru, hand going to his mouth. This was followed by the sound of skin being broken and blood being drawn. Kabuto's blood ran over an intricate summoning tattoo on Orochimaru's purple going blackened arms, causing the snake Sannin to whimper slightly. Kuchiyus no jutsu. Called Orochimaru. Kuchiyus no jutsu. Grunted Jiraiya, he could feel the toad oil in his stomach, slowly breaking down the poison that had thrown his chakra control out whack. Kuchiyus no jutsu. Yelled Tsunade. Big plumes of smoke rolled across the field. Shizune just patched Naruto to stability when the blonde woke up. Wait, the next aid to the Hokage was about to finish when Naruto slammed his right fist into his left hand and a red shroud enveloped him. Kuchiyus no jutsu. Thundered Naruto. Orochimaru watched with a raised eyebrow as Naruto Namikaze, he wasn't stupid. It was the worst kept secret in Konoha, aside from Uchiha Itachi sleeping with one of the daimyo's granddaughters. He, Orochimaru, had made it so for the Uchiha heir. Rogue ninja, yes. Sadistic, definitely so, jutsu obsesses, definitely. Orochimaru would admit to all of those things, but aside from that, he was always up for a laugh at other people's expense. Besides, the young Uchiha needed other things on his record if he was going to infiltrate people like the Akatsuki. Orochimaru didn't like the Red Cloud-robed maniacs, thank you very much. He had joined them as a means to an end, he wanted to rule Konoha as Kage, nothing would stop him from doing that. He also wanted to live forever, and in some narcissistic way, Orochimaru believed himself to be a shinobi of Konoha, definitely not one of Konoha now, but a future Konoha, he'd make sure of it. If anything came between him and that goal, he would defend Konoha. Orochimaru licked his lips, let it begin. The cloud near Jiraiya had cleared, revealing a small bright orange toad. It seems Tsunade's work did a number on you, Jiraiya, cackled Orochimaru. Naruto looked down, his use of Yakai and chakra had resulted in a double summoning. A pale yellow toad and thankfully a massive gargantuan magenta toad. Hey, Niacin, can we play? Asked Gamatatsu. Naruto sighed, not now Tatsu, I kinda need the boss. What is it, kid? Where's Gamakichi? He disappeared when he should have been training. Rumbled the chief toad, smoking his pipe. I don't know. Jiraiya, he was poisoned, tried to summon you, but the cranky bat drugged him. Kichi, he's over by that giant-ass purple snake. Pointed Naruto. Gamabunta looked and his eyes narrowed. Manda and Kitsayu with a mighty leap, Gamabunta jumped into the air. A chakra shrouded Naruto clinging on, and with a mighty crash, the toad landed, planting himself firmly in front of Jiraiya, who was in turn, in front of Gamakichi. The Sannin and young toad jumped onto Gamabunta, with Gamakichi and Tatsu standing on Naruto's chakra-shrouded shoulders. Manda, Kitsayu, long time. Lord Gamabunta, Lord Manda. Replied Kitsayu courteously. Jerky, slug bitch. Hissed Manda. Orochimaru, I told you to never summon me unless you had tribute. Oh, but Manda, wouldn't the summoners of the other two great contracts be tribute enough, and the summons themselves? Soon enough Jiraiya stood up and his chakra began to pulse. He was evidently clean of the poison Tsunade had placed on him. Let's do this. Jiraiya commented. Toad oil bullet. Rumbled Gamabunta as he exhaled a tremendous amount of oil. Fire style. Flame bomb. Thundered Jiraiya as his stomach bulged and he vomited a massive fire orb. Naruto, Gamakichi and Gamatatsu smirked, they were going to mix this up. Page Bunshin no Jutsu. Called Naruto and a second clone materialized. Toad oil bullet. Shouted the twin sons of the Toad boss. The older summon and summoner were impressed as the oil combusted, intensifying the already projecting flame attack. Fire style. Great fire attack. Shouted the clone, exhaling the classic fireball jutsu as a flamethrower. Wind style. Wind tunnel. Naruto concentrated on the swirling rotation of the Rasengan, only except he was converting his chakra into wind chakra. He cupped his hands and then stepped forwards, thrusting the twisting, thrashing and vicious cyclone of chakra forwards. The wind and fire attack amplified, it caught the newly nicknamed fire style. Multi-toad oil bomb jutsu, tore into it and turned it into a spiral of fragmenting tornado of fire bombs. Collaboration jutsu. Toad oil peacock. Manda, Orochimaru and Kabuto had next to no chance as the attacks landed on them and they were engulfed in the inferno. The flames died down, only to reveal two crisp outlines. One of Orochimaru and the other of the Manda's Snakasheddon. Body shedding. Shouted Jiraiya and Gamabunta, both in disgust and revulsion. They leapt clear as Orochimaru and Manda erupted from the earth beneath them. Kabuto meanwhile had managed to replace himself far outside the range of the technique, if the charcoaled remains of a dozen logs were any indication. Naruto jumped off, kicked of Manda and hit the ground with a roll, coming to feet as Kabuto rushed at him. Shizune, who had been supporting her teacher and friend, charged in. The wide sleeve of her dress peeling back as she discharged 18 senbon needles in Kabuto's direction, shortly followed up by a purple fast-flowing and slow dissipating gas. Kabuto dodged back, as he posed to get his breath back he ate 2 food pills and a chakra pill. He stiffened as the immediate crap-tasting food pills dissolved the moment they hit his stomach and the chakra pill exploded with the sensation of a ghost pepper. Chakra pills were disgusting. Food pills weren't much better. The pair of them together, everyone was grateful for the fast action but despised the aftertaste due to the fact they were the one thing in all shinobi ration packs that were edible by all eaters. There were a few shinobi, Aka Enko, who ate them continuously and used her ration packs for when she had overcompensated on dango and sake, which was often. Naruto charged through the smoke, shroud forsaken, and in his hand was glowing orb of chakra Rasengan. Kabuto's eyes widened, the air was driven from his lungs as the orb of chakra slammed into his gut, sending him backwards and through a pile of rock. As Kabuto hit the rock, Manda vanished, shortly followed by the other summons. Manda, it looked like, had at some point had Gamabunta's sword driven through both the upper and lower jaw. Orochimaru watched slightly fretful but let out a small sigh as Kabuto got up. Impressive, attacked Naruto-kun. If I hadn't consumed those pills then that attack would certainly have killed me anyway, I must go. I have a feeling we'll be seeing each other very, very soon. But that the two Nuke Nin vanished in a body flicker technique. Naruto sheathed his blades next time I'm walking away, that much I am certain. Jiraiya, Shizune and Naruto turned to Tsunade. Naruto stood at attention, Jiraiya slouched by his teammate's side, and Shizune stiffened Genin Uzumaki. At ease I, Senju Tsunade, accept the position of Godame Hokage, and swear to uphold all the laws and treaties of Konohagakure no Sado and Hai, no Kuni to the best of my abilities. Now, we must head back as soon as possible, but not too strenuously. It took just over 3 days at a decent speed to head back to Konoha. All the while, Naruto learned little tricks from Jiraiya and Tsunade, mainly from Jiraiya. They were ways on how to improve seal speed and how to try and mask his chakra usage for a jutsu. Jiraiya had worked with Uchiha, and this technique worked more often than not. Temari was waiting at the gates as Jiraiya, Naruto, Shizune and Tsunade checked in mission successful. Not yet fully debriefed, I'll see you in a bit. If not, probably because they want to rake my bollocks over not bringing back any of Konoha's traitors. You're a genin. Temari stated. They're cunts plus they don't like me. Naruto responded. He then fell into step beside Jiraiya and they headed up to the Hokage's tower. In the tower were the 3 elders of the village, the hangovers from the 2 reigns of the Sandame and the Yondame. Tsunade felt the tension rise as Naruto entered Genin Uzumaki, report to Jiraiya for debriefing within 3 days. Naruto bowed deeply to the Hokage, nodded to the elders and walked out, deliberately doing it in such a way that it offended the elders' sensibilities of protocol, but adhering to respect of a commanding officer. Naruto headed back to the front gate, where Temari was waiting with surprisingly teammate of all teams. How'd the mission go? Naruto grinned. Okay. Went to shit slightly, thankfully my arse got pulled out the situation alright. Got to see a Sannin showdown and we got a new cage. So can't complain. You finished. Kiba shrugged. We're here as her escort, parole terms not been accepted. Being a cage-less state puts dampener on the proceedings. Kiba said. Naruto nodded. What's the plan, Shino? We were planning to test her capabilities in one-on-one fights against us, Naruto-san. Would care to accompany us? Asked the quiet Abiram. Naruto nodded. That would be a pleasure and an honor. Especially if Temari-san agrees. I mean, she is after all daughter of a cage and deserves the respect of that station. Shino replied before turning to her. Temari nodded. Inside she was grinning. Being a prisoner was annoying, but it had its upsides, especially when her guards were her age. It made her feel less like a prisoner and more of an honored guest. And Kuro was enjoying a similar treatment. He had found himself at home, working in the lumber yard with various genin teams, giving the timber merchant shinobi advice on good timber and wood for puppetry, carpentry, flooring, etc. It was nothing to do with village secrets or secrets of the core, but rather identifying the wood most suitable for shinobi and civilians. So, life in Konoha went along smoothly, if what's somewhat sporadic, as the new Chunin hopefuls entered into the rotation. Rotation in Naruto's opinion was the best. His actions during the crush and the returning of the Godame Hokage had made him more respected throughout the Konoha shinobi force. Furthermore, upon Jiraiya finding out his lack of access to several buildings that most shinobi required access to, the village experienced 3 days of turbulent shakes and tremors. During those 3 days, shinobi and civilians, veterans, inexperienced, retired and those who were just plain wankers all learned or remembered why it was not a good idea to anger Jiraiya. Contrary to popular belief, Jiraiya possessed more chakra reserves and denser coils than Orochimaru, the supposedly strongest of the Sannin. But in fact it was Jiraiya. That was also the reason why the summons were unleashed. It stopped Jiraiya from going on a full-on rampage. Naruto found himself in the Hokage's office collecting a shinobi bank account details, library card and others. Also in the office were 3 other shinobi. One was an elderly man with a missing foot and a walk on his back. His name was Maraboshi Kasuke. Another bore an older Chunin vest. This was Shirajara, and the final member was Kanden Takuno. All 3 of the shinobi with Naruto were part of the Konoha Sword Corps. Naruto had been attached to them for 3 months now, and as a result he had refined his kenjutsu skills with a katana and his flip-out tanto. Furthermore, Takuno was one of the few Futon shinobi in the Corps actively serving that were not only available to help Naruto refine his Futon affinity, but also one of the few that did not hate the blonde genin. Border patrol successful, nothing occurred. Uzumaki Naruto has displayed remarkable improvement in kenjutsu and Futon jutsu. Tsunade nodded. Very good. Dismissed. Takuno turned to his squad. Congratulations on our 5th mission together, drinks anyone? Naruto nodded. Yeah, not got anything planned aside from dodge Sasuke and probably see Temari part of her parole team. The group nodded. You did well out there. Let's have a drink and then you go and do what it is that needs doing. 3 drinks later, Naruto found himself at the training ground with Team 7. Sasuke was there, eyeing Temari with his Sharingan activated. Temari, don't use any jutsu that require hand seals. Temari spun around and a grin crossed her face as she saw Naruto appear on the training ground. Why? She turned and saw Sasuke, Sharingan activated. That. Tamari nodded, she spun around, her fan outstretched, fury on her face as she saw Sasuke's eyes follow not her hands, but her backside. Usujin no jutsu. She yelled, whipping up the dust on the training ground. Naruto was moving as the dust storm engulfed his pyromaniac inferior superior complex teammate and friend. Naruto closed the gap and managed to land a devastating gut punch and knee strike, sending Sasuke backwards. Sasuke flipped and the heir of surviving family of the other founding clan of the village landed like a cat fire style. Great fireball jutsu. Tamari cut the jutsu as it engulfed in a firestorm. Several Chunin arrived on the scene, most of them had spent time with the former Kazukiya's daughter and knew that she wouldn't do something like this unless necessary. Following the dust storm was a fireball. They arrived to find Uchiha Sasuke markings on his face, launching himself at Naruto. Uzumaki Naruto, Uchiha Sasuke ceased immediately. Naruto jumped backwards, Sasuke launched forwards, his hand began to vibrate and soon became encased in a vibrant blue lightning. Naruto's eyes widened, oh boy. He looked, he didn't dare move. He smirked, he reached into his pocket. Sasuke charged, Naruto reached into his pouch and chucked 5 different colored orbs. He turned to Tamari, she nodded, he wrapped his arms around her and he shunshined out of the way as several Chunin successfully overpowered the loyal Uchiha. "Are you okay, Tamari-san?" Naruto asked. Tamari nodded and sighed as Naruto placed his hands in the air as Chunin from the military police force apprehended him. Everyone was escorted to the Hokage's office. Tsunade listened to the outcome of events, released Tamari-san and Uzumaki Naruto. Genin Uchiha Sasuke will spend 3-4 days in solitary. Naruto winced, solitary was a shit punishment. No one ever wanted solitary, but it was effective. He could feel Sasuke's anger and eyes burning into his back. Hokage-sama, I apologize. I should. You did everything right, Genin Uzumaki. Keeping the Kazukiya's daughter safe was priority. Speaking of that, the Kase no Kuni no Daimyo and the governing council of Sunagakure no Sado have acquiesced to our demands, apologies have been made, and now some of our VIP are to be restored. Naruto nodded, meaning Tamari-san, Kankuro-san and Gaara-san, they're the main ones I can think of. Tsunade nodded, those 3, their sensei and 30 of their top Chunin and Jonin in total. Naruto nodded, Permi, granted Chunin Uzumaki. It took some badgering, but the clans overruled the elders and the civilians. You and Chunin Nara are the only ones that we can think of that deserve the promotion. I trust your confrontation with Genin Uchiha will not be happening again. Hi, Tsunade-sama. I will not start any confrontation with my only surviving original teammate, I reserve the right to defend myself as necessary. Tsunade nodded and the daughter of the deceased Kage and her parole officer left. Naruto shut the door behind them, congratulations Chunin Uzumaki. Please Tamari-san, call me Naruto. With that duo walked down the stairs and almost into Kankuro and Gaara. Out of the 3, Naruto was closest to Tamari and Gaara. Tamari because she was a wind affinity and generally the one who was out and about the most. Whereas Gaara was kept under Jonin observation and due to both their statuses of Jinchuriki, they learned a fair bit about each other. Naruto, Jiraiya, Naruto's temporary rotation team and 2 squads of Anbu, headed out early 2 days later. The Anbu led them on a brusque pace through the trees and along several lesser-known paths through the woods of Hai no Kuni, and eventually they made it to the borderline between Hai no Kuni and Kase no Kuni. The Sand siblings and Baki bowed to their former captors and walked out onto the sand. Follow where Baki walks, that way is the surest way to get to Suna unless you're me. Gaara rasped as the sand elevated him and carried him into the desert and out of sight. You'll see her again kid, the ninja world isn't that large. Jiraiya said conversationally. You think? Jiraiya chuckled, kid, I know. Shinobi don't get to my age not without making some good allies. Naruto did nod at that. What did you do to Gaara? I mean, you mentioned on our trip that you were a Fuinjutsu master. Fuinjutsu is the design and creation of seals. Some of these things are SSG, standard shinobi gear. These include explosive tags and storage seals. Naruto nodded. Fuinjutsu allows for the design of these things. Jiraiya nodded, the most well-known use for them are in the creation of Jinchuriki. You may have heard of freak disasters that rock Iwa, Kumo, Kiri and Suna, and occasionally Taki, correct? Naruto nodded. Their Biju have gotten loose. Jiraiya nodded. Anything else? We haven't really had any problems, have we? Naruto asked. Jiraiya grinned. One. The Uchiha were involved, so yeah. The trip back was in silence. On the travel back, Jiraiya had gone over to Naruto's team and took Naruto and began to train him in the secrets of Fuinjutsu. Naruto unsurprisingly to Jiraiya began to take to the training like a fish to water. Sasuke, the door of solitary opened and waiting for the fuming Uchiha was Kakashi. The Cyclopean Jonin sighed, come on. Sasuke fumed as he followed his sensei, why couldn't Naruto have admitted he was better for the girl? Soon enough Kakashi had led Sasuke into a heavily forested area and vanished. Sasuke's eyes widened as Kakashi vanished and planted a very strong knee strike just below the solar plexus before pinning him to the tree. Kakashi sighed and he fixed Sasuke with a dead-eye stare, why do you keep doing this? Sasuke didn't answer, he didn't need to. Kakashi had read it. Naruto, it scares you that the dead last has not only improved considerably, and not only that became Chunin before you. Sasuke grunted. Sasuke, you and Naruto are so similar, but yet so different. I was assigned to you as a Jonin sensei to protect you and Naruto both. You had the better opportunities, and yet you squandered them. Get your act together, and I would strongly recommend you apologize to Naruto, as this is more than likely going to go on your record. Sasuke nodded. Kakashi's hand slacked. Kaiten. Ryuken no Jutsu. Executed. Sasuke expelling a dragon head of flame at his sensei. Kakashi swiftly replaced himself with a log which combusted into charcoal. Sasuke jumped to his feet and he took off. His path was clear. If his teacher wasn't going to help him get strong enough to defeat him, then he'd find someone else. His eyes bled red and the dreaded Tomo emerged. He landed on a building when his Sharingan alerted him to 4 concealed signatures. Come out, I can see you. The 4 reluctantly came out of the shadows. Sasuke observed them. One of them looked like an Akamichi, another had an ungodly growth growing out of its back, and another had 6 arms, and the other was the most human looking alongside the fat one. Who are you? The Eye of the Sound Ninja 4 of the North Gate. Got a problem with it, you lump of shit. Stated girl. That wasn't a womanly thing to say, Teiaya. I'm Jirobo of the South Gate. Alright lovebirds. This isn't a romance game. Kidomaru of the East Gate. Stated the 6-armed teen. I'm Seiken of the and the West Gate. Now we'll inform you on the way, but we need to hurry. Lord Sasuke. Your reckless attack on your teacher will lead to some unpredicted factors. Sasuke nodded. What do you want with me? Orochimaru-sama has offered to train you. He can give you power and training unlike any other. All you need to do is cut ties with this village, activate your curse seal, and we shall take it from there. Explained Jirobo. Sasuke smirked. Let's go. With that the flame-like markings erupted across his face, and with that he took off running towards the gates with the Sound 4 following. Naruto had a bottle of sake and was sitting with Jiraiya and Hari on top of the Hokage tower. Right now the young Chunin was spilling his guts about Temari. That Naruto-chan is what is called a crush. Hari said as he pulled on the bottle and handed to the blonde. The first is always the weirdest. Some people think that the first crush is the one. Don't worry about it. My first one happened to be a spy. Jiraiya turned curiously. How'd that go? Rather fulfilling interrogation, loud and exhausting. Naruto shook his head and Jiraiya chuckled a belly-rolling laugh. They saw 5 people running across the rooftops. Jiraiya pulled out his spyglass, went to have a look through and shrugged. Probably Genin on rotation practicing late-night traveling and en route for outcropping duty. Little did he know that if he had looked would have spared a lot of chasing around. Naruto got up, swayed slightly before utilizing the shunshin. He vanished. He does know not to drink and shunshin. Jiraiya smirked. If he doesn't he will soon. Next morning, Tsunade was attacking the massive pile of paperwork, half tempted to open a bottle of sake when her door slammed open when 3 shinobi entered. Yes. 2 of them were Katetsu and Izumo, gate guards of the northern gate of Konoha, and members of the T&I department. Uchiha Sasuke and 4 unknown shinobi were seen leaving the village. Hattori Hana and Hunter tried to apprehend them, but the 4 unknown quickly revealed themselves to be Jonin-level opponents. Tsunade nodded. Kakashi. Kakashi looked rather sheepish. I took Uchiha Sasuke out of solitary. We began to talk and then he launched an impressive salvo of Kaiten at me. I had to replace myself several times and then took a circuitous route to catch up with him. I then saw him with these shinobi as described by my 2 colleagues. However, I saw their headbands. Odo. I am denied. Kakashi, I need you to do this SS-ranked mission. Here's the scroll, Team Inu will brief you. I need you set off now. Rest assured I will send whoever I can after them. Kakashi nodded. Tora, get me Nara Shikamaru and Uzumaki Naruto. B-rank mission. Naruto woke in his toilet. He was still dressed, his skin was clammy, and he felt shaky. He remembered drinking rather heavily. Thankfully the malevolent chakra entity in his gut, who was pleased with his process, was clearing up the toxins. It was one of the many side benefits of making this deal. You are my representative in the world. You are me. I am you. The stronger you are, the stronger I am. Do not fail me. The Kyuubi rumbled deep within his mindset. There was a knocking on his door and Naruto, fresh from a shower wearing boxers and grabbing a kunai, opened it. He stopped. It was one of the Anbu. Hokage-sama needs you in her office as soon as possible. Naruto nodded and was flying out of his apartment, black trousers on, a clone shoving a shirt over the original's head with another with a flak vest and another with his kit. The Anbu snapped a picture of Naruto running into his door and falling over the railing onto the street below. This would earn him drinks in the department, the prankster getting caught off guard. Naruto staggered ungracefully into Tsunade's office, hair still damp and looking utterly disheveled. Uzumaki Naruto, reporting for duty. He called, snapping to attention. Tsunade set him at ease. Late yesterday, Uchiha Sasuke left the village with persons unknown. Highly skilled, very dangerous and have already killed 3 of our own and brutally wounded 2 more. Utilizing all of the genin at your disposal you are to retrieve Uchiha Sasuke. Shikamaru nodded. Naruto, I'll gather our squad. Naruto nodded and he turned to Tsunade. This is going to be messy, are there limitations to how this is to be done? Tsunade looked at him. If Sasuke Uchiha is not going to come back willingly, consider him a nuke nin. Uzumaki Naruto, destroy his eyes. Naruto nodded. He had his orders, now to find his team. He met up with 3 of his clones, one of which had oiled and sharpened his specialist blades, kunai, shuriken, 2 tanto and his stack of bomb tags, paper bombs and various smoke bombs in variant. Another had brought him an immediate bag of reserve shinobi kit. He and Kiba were the last 2 to arrive. You're late. I'm on time anyway, I needed to get kitted for the fight ahead. Shikamaru nodded. Okay. Gear assessment and then we'll brief you. We're working as a rescue team. Kiba and Akamaru are on point. I'm second so I can give orders more effectively when things go sideways. Naruto, you're the middle and of equal rank, plus you have the Kage Bunshin and other tricks up your sleeves, making you the important middleman. Toji is behind you, as he's slowest, but probably delivers some of the strongest hits in this team, and finally, you Neji, with your Byakugan, you can ensure no weaknesses appear, but you're the rear lookout. Everyone nodded. Our gear. The amount of kunai, shuriken and ninja wire everyone was packing was enough to comfortably start a war. Naruto presented his blades and began to speak. This is a B-rank mission with a very, very high chance of escalating further. I can't guarantee reinforcements, but Godame-sama has informed us that should we have a chance to stop Uchiha Sasuke from reaching Itagakure and Orochimaru by killing him, you are authorized to take that shot. Everyone gulped. This would be the scariest mission yet. Meanwhile up ahead Sasuke had been shoved screaming into a barrel carved with elaborate fuinjutsu. The clock was ticking very much in Orochimaru's favor. The team took off like the bats out of hell. They had their jobs and all of them were prepared to take on potentially Jonin-level opponents. They did agree on one thing. Sasuke was a leaf shinobi and would be punished as one, Kekkei Genkai or not. When Naruto had briefed them, it didn't need a genius to realize that if this mission failed or succeeded, he would be the one taking the blame. Did anyone get a good look at these people? Choji asked as they jumped through the trees in line formation. No, got a good smell. Replied Kiba from his position of second in line. As did I. Naruto said. Naruto was operating in a circle of clones surrounding the group. His job would be to use his clones to rupture as many traps that could be placed between them and their targets. Shikamaru sighed. What did you smell? One smelt outrageously like food and greed, another had the scent of a spider, another was weird like 2 people in one, another had a lavenderish smell. Naruto nodded. Due to a legacy I smelt this. One's like hungry earth, another definitely spider-like, one it smells like freshly opened weapon kit or surgeons and the final one well ghosts. Shikamaru groaned. Anything useful? Yeah, have their affinities. Earth, fire, both of them, Naruto replied. He barely winced as a clone landed on an invisible wire connected to 2 explosive tags. You okay? Yeah, explosive wire trap. Nothing else I don't think. Anyway, let's go. Ordered Naruto. The group stepped up the pace. The pace they were going at now was a Chunin pace, something that all genin should be able to maintain indefinitely. Thankfully, these particular genin on their date with destiny were able to. Neji. Called Kiba. What is it, Kiba? In your opinion, who would you say is the strongest shinobi in our class in terms of raw power, and the same with Kunoichi? Neji barely spoke raw power. Naruto has the rawest chakra at his disposal. If it was not for the fact that Yuzukihari taught him, and he is currently being taught by Jiraiya, then I would have said Sasuke was the most physically powerful genin. As for Kunoichi, it is a coin toss between Tenten and Hinata-sama. Naruto's eyes widened. As he remembered what Hari had told him. Flashback. Yup, kicked me out the house I was in by reneging on contracts. Separated me from my little girl Tenten. I was lucky, I trusted them with everything. They even allow me partial visitation rights. And flashback. Naruto, okay. It was Neji asking. Yeah, just something sensei said to me a while back about Tenten. Actually no one's business aside for those who know. Naruto replied. What do you know? Neji countered. Naruto stopped. Depends on what Tenten's told you or you found out. Just I know stuff firsthand from Hari-sensei. He mentioned it in context about us being the sticking points of the council. I see them now. The fat one hits worse than you, Choji. Oh, and they have a barrel with them, Naruto said. Shikamaru nodded. Take us in. Instructed Shikamaru. Do we have permission to engage straight away? Kiba asked. Yes. Both Chunin stated, and with that the squad descended upon the sound ninjas and the trapped form of their comrade. Incoming. 5 targets. Rather simple, began Kidomaru, but as he mocked the incoming pitiful chakra signatures. He made a unique seal, and a brace of golden kunai appeared in his hands. The retrieval team didn't acknowledge the disparaging comments. However, they noticed the red-haired Kunoichi grab the container and take to the trees. This left behind the other 3, the 6-armed one, 2 heads and the Akimichi with a mohawk. Taiya, take the package and run. We'll hold them here. Naruto, you and Shikamaru catch the redhead and get Sasuke back. Ordered Neji. What about these? Hiba growled at them, leave them to us. This is what we signed up for. Choji, you take your ugly cousin, I'll take this one. Neji was already on the 6-armed team, his fingertips glowing in ethereal blue and already in the process of using the Hyuga gentle fist. Choji vs Jirobo. Iken no Jutsu. Yelled Choji as he ballooned to enormous proportions and chucked 2 heavy punches at his opponent. Jirobo grunted as the attacks connected with him. Sure, the attacks were painful, but did nothing in terms of actual damage. Nice try, fat ass. I'm Jirobo of the South Gate. With that, Jirobo with absent-minded ease caught the next incoming punch, twisted the arm around and launched a powerful punch into Choji's diaphragm. Choji grunted, folded over due to the force of the punch and slid backwards, landing on his back. Jirobo stalked forwards and was nearly upon the Rotunda Akimichi air when the boy sat up, rolled forwards and then launched himself forwards. Jirobo folded as his latest snack plowed into his gut. Jirobo suddenly found himself scooped off his feet by Iken no Jutsu. Jirobo began to find himself a very large way off the ground. He tried to struggle, but the large fat-ass food supply had him by the hips. Jirobo wiggled and just managed to get his legs around his prey's head. When suddenly his world spun and pain erupted through his shoulders and to the back of his head. Choji saw his opponent's eyes glaze over momentarily from the pain. This was his chance. He picked the South Gate up and this time jumped. At the apex of his climb, he made the imitation of sitting down, legs apart. Gravity took over and Choji shoved out, his back and spine rattled from the technique, but Jirobo in his eyes writhed in pain and went limp. Agraitu, Hida. Hida was in Choji's opinion one of his favorite cousins. A physical giant that under medical nin orders was not to use the Akimichi super expansion jutsu or any of its variants. Due to his unnatural height, it didn't help that he had a fast metabolism and was broad and muscled instead of broad and fluffy. Choji had asked Hida to teach him a few things that were not necessarily part of the clan's ninjutsu taijutsu archive, and those were 2 of the techniques. The powerbomb and sit-out powerbomb, as Choji had learned, were 2 of his more devastating techniques. Choji went forwards when, similar to him, Jirobo sat up. This time markings akin to Sasuke's, but these were more tribal, appeared on his face. Jirobo, whereas before had been solid chunin, his skills now jumped to low jonin. Choji buckled as his world spun and a painful sensation reverberated throughout his skull. Jirobo had clapped his hands over the Akimichi's ears. Boring. Growled Jirobo, to think, pray like you needed me to work for my food. Choji saw his opponent's hands glow blue and could feel his chakra being stolen. Choji concentrated. He was dangling off the floor slightly. If he did this right, he could break his opponent's grip and use the 3 colored pills to give him the edge he required. Babaiku no Jutsu. Jirobo found himself being raised up again. Only this time, his prey had his legs hammered on no jutsu. With a roar and with pure strength and fury, Choji slammed his opponent into the wrecked forest floor, creating a much bigger crater. The attack temporarily distracted the other combatants, but they resumed their own fights. Choji jumped backwards and pulled out a pack of 3 pills. Time to use these. With that, he popped the green pill into his mouth. The spinach pill activated, he and Jirobo rushed at each other. Jirobo launched a punch that would fracture whatever part of the body it connected with, but Choji grabbed the arm and used the momentum to flip drive his knee squarely into his opponent's gut. Impossible. Groaned Jirobo. His body was aching from the beating, but he couldn't stop. He needed to beat this fat bastard before helping the others deal with their opponents. I will stop you. Growled Choji as he bodily hurled Jirobo through a tree. Time to finish this. Choji pulled out 2 chains of kunai. Aiku no Jutsu. Nikiden Hari Sensha. Jirobo's eyes widened as suddenly he wasn't faced by a fat kid, but rather a spinning orb of mass. Oten. Doroku Garshi. A thick tablet of earth erupted from the ground, but Choji tore through it. Jirobo moved himself to block it. He resented it, but he was the South Gate not because he was weak, but rather he was able to slow down all pursuers. Choji stopped and was suddenly sent flying backwards by a strong palm strike, followed up by shoulder barge. The trajectory Choji took just saved Niji's life. Niji looked like he was in trouble, but Choji flying past him allowed him a few moments to consume 2 more chakra pills. You know, the one who is left behind is generally the dead weight, fattest and the weakest of all the entire team. Commented Jirobo, causing Choji to groan as his body racked with convulsions from the effects of the spinach pill. Choji remembered Hida explaining the pills. Green spinach pill, which increases chakra levels by 5-fold. Yellow curry pill by 10-fold, and finally the red chili pill increased 100-fold, but death was imminent. Choji groaned, I'm not. Shikamaru selected me for a reason. Hands shaking, he grabbed the pill box and opened the yellow pill. The convulsions stopped, his breathing increased, and a royal blue chakra shroud appeared around Choji as the curry pill took hold. Jirobo's eyes widened in gluttony and he rushed forwards. Baiken no Jutsu. Jirobo ducked the arm but was suddenly caught off guard. Chobaiken no jutsu. Leg. Punt. Howled Choji as he effectively toe punted his opponent skywards. Chobaiken no jutsu. Jirobo and the remaining sound ninja looked up to see the fattest opponent suddenly become the most gargantuan. The FIFO Fum, who knew Choji could be the big one. Kiba said dumbfounded, he turned back and began to press the attack on his opponent. Choji meanwhile forced Jirobo into his second curse mark form after in essence super chubby bombing the south gate into the floor. Dislodging Kidomaru from his tree allowing for Niji to finish him once and for all. Choji was in pain. He was in a feverish sweat, he shoved the red chili pill into his mouth before effectively performing a power bomb on the now rusted red and gold Jirobo. Jirobo had cracked ribs and legs and was finally prone. Choji was rasping for breath nursing broken ribs, a grazed lung. He raised his fist and massive butterfly wings erupted from his back. Then slowly, ever so slowly the chakra appeared in his fist butterfly drop. The fist slammed through the sternum, shattering the cracked ribs and shredding the internal organs. Jirobo grunted and then died. Choji sank to his knees exhausted. Meanwhile the fights raged on around him. Niji and Shikamaru vs Kidomaru and Taiya. Niji focused on his opponent, his eyes activated in time to effortlessly bat, duck, dodge, dip, dive and dodge the barrage of arrows being shot at him. Shadow grab no jutsu. He heard Shikamaru mutter from behind him. The arrows suddenly halted in mid-flight. Shikamaru concentrated. The shadows twitched, twisted and suddenly launched themselves at the red-headed Kunoichi. She snorted, muttered something under her breath and raised her flute to her lips and her fingers began to play. Niji heard the music and his technique faltering as the music reached his ears. His eyes glazed over as the Jinjutsu took effect. The Jinjutsu started with a flashbang tag being detonated at his eye level and as he collapsed, he found the ground sinking or reaching up. Jinjutsu. Niji despite being a Hyuga was weak to being ensnared in a Jinjutsu, but upon realizing he was trapped in one, he had created a unique technique, the breaking strike. The technique involved effectively jump-starting the chakra network and then channeling the released and uncontrolled chakra pulse into a strike. Anyone could do it, Rock Lee and Gai Sensei in Niji's opinion could utilize it effectively, but any of the Hyuga clan could make it extremely effective. Shikamaru-san, your plan. Mendisk Niji, take out 6 arms, I'm running low on chakra. Shikamaru grumbled. He dived to one side, narrowly avoid a barrage of kunai and arrows. As he moved he managed to pluck the bag of soldier's pills out of the air, which had been casually passed by Kiba. Shikamaru groaned as he swallowed them and shuddered as the pills began to kick in. The chakra booster kicked in as Niji erupted from the Jinjutsu in a small shroud of chakra and vanished. Yukin. Zesso Hachiman Hijeki. Niji reappeared in front of his opponent and with his fingers flicking and dancing in the combat style of the Hyuga clan, Niji hit 8 specific parts of Kidomaru's body, the 8 locations of the celestial gates. A hidden trick with the gentle fist, it was predominantly used to close Tenketsu points. But to members of the main house and specific branch bodyguards, they were taught how to widen the flow of chakra. Couple that with the fact that the 8 gates were naturally dams of restrained chakra, it should disable and maim at worst and kill at best. Unfortunately for Niji, Kidomaru was already aware of what his prey was going to do. Hiden. Golden carapace. He murmured. He uttered it just in time as Niji's 8 attacks connected solidly. You little shit. Kidomaru gasped as he exhaled harshly and spat a few drops of blood, a cracked tooth and carapace. The cursed seal once dormant erupted into life. The simple boost won't do anything. I have your measure Kidomaru no Odo, you're within my divination haki hayaku nijahaso. 2 palms. 4 palms. 8 palms. 16 palms. 32 palms. 64 palms. 128 palms. Haki Hasenjeki. Niji growled as he delivered the famed main branch finisher of the gentle fist, accompanied by his own advancement of the generic air palm. Kidomaru was paralyzed, he wasn't expecting his prey and potential sport to be this vicious. The cursed mark assisted in unblocking a few of the chakra points, but it really saved his ass when that column of pressurized air hurled him through 3 trees and the shrapnel narrowly avoided impaling him. He focused on the addictive power of Orochimaru-sama's curse mark and his naturally tanned form darkened even further and a third eye appeared on his forehead. Meanwhile, Shikamaru winced. He had just broken the tip of this pinky finger and had subtly broke out of the chains of Fantasia Jinjutsu. Shikamaru smirked, he and his third cousin Naranolo were the first 2 in a while to inherit the full Narakeke Genkai, which included the ability to mask their chakra. Something he applied thoroughly as of right now. Aim over shit stain, I'm a censor, your playing dead ploy won't fucking work. Your breathing gave you away as well as my own skills, but playing dead won't matter. You're going to be dead soon enough. Kuchiyus no Jutsu. The branch Taiya was resting on erupted into smoke and 3 monstrosities appeared. Enjoy shitston. As she declared this her curse mark transformed her. Her hair lengthened, eyes turned yellow and a crown of horns erupted from her head. Shikamaru groaned, this had just gotten exceptionally more complex. However, a voice caught the battling Chunin, and 2 Genin I most certainly will a Kamitachi no jutsu. Shouted Tamari announcing her jutsu. Shikamaru covered his face as the jutsu unfolded. Niji glanced behind him, swiftly replaced himself with a log, only to find blades of wind, logs and branches flying at him at terminal speed. The Kesho Kaiten. Shouted Niji as he began to spin. The spin saved his life from the wind technique. However, the wind technique itself saved him as the moment he came out of his spin, 2 arrows punched their way through his body. The first one went straight into his scapula, clipped his clung and punched straight out of his ribsage, spraying blood, bone and cartilage out into the deforested area. Tamari watched in horror as the Hyuga was struck by the wound indirectly caused by her. She releases a soft sigh as she realized while severe the wound wouldn't be fatal yet. Even she yelped in surprise as the second arrow punched straight through the thigh, narrowly missing the femoral artery by literally a hair's breadth. It wouldn't be revealed until Tsunade healed Niji that the gap was 1,000th of a picometer. Kitamaru was not so lucky, he was still linked to his prey and game. His body beaten black and blue and, in a few cases, broken. No one could have told him to expect a full-on forest to come his direction. Game over trash 210% power, maximum accuracy. You are mine. Niji groaned and moved his hands to the arrow strings. I agree, fate smiles with me. Jaiken death string touch. Kitamaru went rigid, his heart began to beat erratically and suddenly stopped. It's always weakest fall first. He said as oxygen and blood stopped pumping around his body. Aya managed to get away. As she did so she made the mistake of allowing Shikamaru to explain the situation to Tamari. Perfect time for me to use my Jinjutsu. You have no idea of my powers, Nara-chan, Kuchius. Kirakiri mai. Aya didn't feel a thing as 2 trees slammed into her, breaking her legs and then her spine. However, the shockwave caused by the sickle weasel summons maniacal scythe-swinging and scything winds and caused indirect trauma to her lungs and heart, and unfortunately, they failed. Pity she was easy on the eyes. Shame she kept trying to kill us. Shikamaru commented. Tamari chuckled at that. One of your comrades is in danger, and it seems my brother's skill is not enough. Hiba, Akamaru, Kankuro vs Seiken and Yukin. Hiba and Akamaru were in a dire state. They were unsure why they had decided to take on this member. Kiba was panting heavily, blood gushing from multiple wounds, and on the verge of chakra exhaustion. To make things worse, it seemed the only damage he had done was to himself. It turned out his opponent's Kekkei Genkai allowed them to jump into other people's bodies and subsequently immobilize them. He had thankfully managed to take temporary advantage over Yukin, who appeared to be the one who was better at possessing people. Hiba and Akamaru had however managed to successfully injure the twins to the point that they had to activate their level 2 curse mark. This resulted in the brothers turning red with a pair of yellow snake-like eyes and left arm and leg of Yukin, and Seiken's right arm and leg becoming scaled and stone-like as well. Inpo. Kurahigi Kikipatsu. One of the demonic-looking twins was suddenly encased in a puppet. Before Kiba and the remaining twin could do anything, a second puppet appeared, split apart and slammed with unnerving precision into the slots. Before Kiba could question the effectiveness, blood began to trickle out of the slits. Seiken snarled and his chakra began become visible. Kuchius. Sanrashiman. 3 demonic faces erupted around the 2 tired genin and the ninja dog. Gyuden. Kuchius. A Kamitachi no jutsu. Thundered Tamari as she swung her battle tesson with such force that a pop and a crunching sound were heard. Although no one could have heard the sound above the cackling whirling dervish of destruction that was Tamari's boss summon and some of his smaller brethren, and they descended upon the weird summons. Kankuro paled oh shit black puppet jutsu. Deadman's chest. The puppets disengaged, Yukin's body ejected, and the Suna puppeteer and Inyazuka clan heir were sequestered safely inside the puppets. Edmund's chest. My sisters unleashed the entirety of her lesser summoning contract, which is linked to Kamitachi or sickle weasels. Evil, little, diabolical, absolutely psychotic little shits wielding scythes and kusarigama, all of which are bigger than them. Doesn't help that most of them are brainless or brainlessly loyal to Kamitari, neither is it that they're the best teachers of Futon or Tessen jutsu, both of which Tamari excels at. Kankuro explained. There was a sudden tranquility following the shout. That was soon disrupted over the sound of screeching and wailing winds, which followed the orchestral cackling and wailing of the Kamitachi, as their Kamitachi Futon jutsu cleaved the stone apart and buried Seiken beneath it. However, as the body was pulverized, Kamitari effortlessly cleaved the head off. The lady boss will be pleased with this puppet-chan, Puppygaki you alive. Hiba turned red, mate leave it best not antagonize the little walking flannel. Kankuro groused. We're fine Kamitari dono. Amatari cackled. Tamari-sama, your brother I believe has learnt. We shall be away. Nara, who else was in your team? Uzumaki Naruto he took after an unknown and unprepared for member of the Sound 4. Said Shikamaru. Gaara and Lee vs Kamimuro. Lee was in a dire state. As was Gaara. Their opponent now resembled a field of bone spires. Gaara moved their sand cloud just in time as 4 spires tried to skewer them. Eventually Kimimaro erupted, lower body fused with a bone and his arm in a bone drill. Suddenly, a rasping cough and blood erupted from Kimimaro's mouth and the young man went limp. "Just in time, I'm out of chakra," Gaara commented. Alley of the end, Naruto charged through the undergrowth and through the trees in a relentless pursuit of his friend. As they ran, Naruto suppressed a potential excess yokai trying to seep into his body. If Sasuke wasn't going to come back alive, then Naruto would ensure that he came back dead. His training and jutsu entered his mind. Keep to the basics. Never use anything he might have already seen. I've got this. Sasuke. He roared as he skidded to a stop atop a massive stone bust. In front of him was an identical bust, only that one was modeled after Uchiha Madara, and by deduction, Naruto realized he was standing on top of Senju Hashirama. "Why did you come here, dope? To bring me back? Because the Hokage ordered you?" Sasuke asked. "No, because you're a comrade and a colleague. Admittedly one that is fucked in the head and a little bit physically. I consider you a friend, that is why I am bringing you back. However, your condition of returning to Konoha is entirely up to you," Naruto replied. Sasuke snorted. "You and the leaf are pathetic. There is nothing that you can teach me or persuade me to learn to get me to come back." Naruto sighed. "I thought it was going to come down to this. If you're not coming back peacefully, then I'm bringing you back. Dead or alive, it doesn't matter to me. Seeing or blind, alive or dead, all options are good. Seeing as you're not coming back, I'll ensure Orochimaru doesn't get your eyes." Sasuke channeled chakra into his eyes. "Come and take them," he mocked before exhaling a swarm of fireballs. Naruto slid under them and headed towards the lake. "I thought you'd never ask. Hokage's office. You have your orders. Somewhere in Konoha. You know what to do, Shin." "Hi Danzo-sama." Blows were exchanged with an ever-increasing intensity and ferocity. Naruto smirked as he swapped himself with yet another Kage Bunshin. Naruto grinned as he delivered a heavy kick towards the knee, only for it to be intercepted by Sasuke's foot. The feint worked and Sasuke's eyes bulged and blood pooled in his mouth as another kick caught him in the diaphragm. "Coward!" roared Sasuke as the addictive power of the curse mark rushed through his body. "Don't be so hasty, team. Like I said, you are coming home," Naruto thundered as he delivered a set of wild but powerful strikes at Sasuke, who let go of Naruto's leg to get away from Naruto's punches. For all of his drawbacks, Sasuke knew that Naruto was one of the last, scratch that, the last person he wanted to end up in a prolonged contest or fight against. For his vaunted Sharingan, curse mark and naturally powerful reserves, even paled in the light of Naruto's purely monstrous and dense chakra reserves. It allowed him to just keep coming. Which is exactly what was happening right now. "Kaiten. Kakakyu no Jutsu," shouted Sasuke, exhaling a colossal fireball. Naruto grinned as he expelled a fireball of his own. His was much smaller and more compact. When the two collided, Naruto detonated his with the force of a dozen explosive tags. "How? You're not the only one who knows that technique," Naruto mocked as he began to mold chakra for another jutsu. Sasuke watched, his 3-tomoed Sharingan whirling only for him to freeze. "Kaiten. Hasenka no Jutsu." Sasuke's eyes widened as Naruto not only exhaled a second jutsu, commonly used by an Uchiha, but also vomited close to 3 dozen fireballs, showing an impossible degree of control and mastery of the technique. "How? Those are Uchiha techniques," screamed the Uchiha as he exhaled his own salvo of fireballs. The concealed metal projectiles clinked, clanked and struck each other before falling to the water below, which was slowly beginning to bubble. Naruto landed on the surface of the water, heavier than Sasuke, but as Sasuke was landing, Naruto was all up in his face. His chakra pulsing, Sasuke's eyes widened. This was bad. Naruto's chakra never became visible unless he was seriously pissed off. The chakra thankfully was blue. "Kaiten. Ryuka no Jutsu." Sasuke exhaled as he flicked his fingers wrapping Naruto in ninja cord. Naruto swore as the flames encompassed him. He managed to replace himself. Sasuke grinned to himself. The dope was gone. For all of his advanced training, nothing could stand up to the sheer battle prowess of the Uchiha. With that he began to cackle. "Poorest half hour or so from Konoha." Hari loosened the sword in its sheath position on his back. "Who is it?" "I've sensed you the moment I left Konoha. If you insist," came to the reply, and Hari found himself accompanied by Kakashi. For once the silver-haired Jonin did not have his book out, his face set into one of sheer determination. "Hari-san, I need your opinion. What do you think of me? Both as a shinobi and a sensei." Hari looked at the wreck of the former legendary shinobi. "Honestly, Kakashi. Please. On your honor as a shinobi, that you will not do anything rash like suicide." Kakashi gulped. "On my honor." Hari smiled thinly. "I hate seeing you like this, and I hate having to do this, but I need to. As a shinobi, that is easy. I think you were the best we had, easily the strongest shinobi on the force bar Hokage-sama, Sandaime-sama and Anbu commander, at least 13 years ago. You slowly slid down a depressive cycle 12 years ago, and it only accelerated. When you were once S ranked in the bingo book, you're only A rank only because of the Sharingan in your eye socket and the amount of jutsu you know, but reserve and capability wise, I think you're not even A rank. Do not get me wrong, you're an incredibly gifted shinobi, but you've let yourself go. As for a sensei, prodigies do not often make good teachers. You'd make a fine apprentice master routine, but not 3 students. Although speaking of your team, what in the actual fuck? What the fuck were you thinking? Why did you want that team? Kakashi looked at him. I owe people. I owe a lot of people. I owe a lot of people a great many things, and Naruto and Sasuke, for better or worse. I wanted to train them and I failed. I owe Minato and his wife for in essence looking after me after my father committed seppuku because he saved his colleagues instead of completing the mission. And then there's Obito Uchiha, my best friend only. I never called him that. The only time I did was literally just before he died. So, I asked for Naruto and Sasuke. I anticipated the animosity of the villagers and the cunningness of the elders. They made it impossible for me to teach Naruto or give him any guidance. So, I thank you for that. Is Jiraiya. Now I need to stop those two from potentially killing each other. Kakashi nodded. The answers hurt, but then again, he did ask for Yuzuki Hari's opinions, and Yuga's twin had always been known to be unapologetically blunt in his opinions on people. Thankfully, he had the professionalism to not bring it up whilst on mission and not bring it up in his verbal reports, and everyone knew it would be in the written report when he used the phrase, "My full report will say everything." The pair carried on their intense pace when Kakashi smelt something. As a Haddock, he was blessed with an incredibly natural heightened sense of smell, nowhere near the sensitivity of their distant cousins the Inuzuka, but definitely more sensitive than most sensory ninja. We've incoming. In front of them, wearing blank Anbu masks with the insignia on them, wearing black tops revealing the midriff, were 40 shinobi that Kakashi pegged as Root Division. A division he himself had infiltrated shortly after the Sandaime came back to power. Root. Hari's eyes narrowed, and then came the unmistakable sound of his katana being drawn from its sheath. Kakashi, I've got this. Go, get your students. Valley of the End. The valley was in 2 words, messed up. In 3 words, seriously messed up. Big gashes had been carved out of the 2 gigantic busts of Uchiha Madara and Senju Hashirama. The size of these gashes and craters was a serious testament to the raw chakra being flung around. Sasuke grinned and turned to leave the territory of Hai no Kuni when a dual-toned reverberating voice came out of the smoke. You know what, team? You're seriously pissing me off. Naruto left the smoke, looking distinctively feral. Your little fire attack didn't harm me. Now, I'm going to kick the ever-living shit out of you. What I've just done, as a warm-up. Sasuke smirked, but the smirk faded as Naruto's distinctively nailed fingers, now looking more like claws, buried itself in his gut. The next strike was an elbow to the top of the head, stopping him from forming the words to his next jutsu. Following this came an elbow and knee strike, the former of which was only just blocked, the latter a feint. Meanwhile, as the 2 friends turned enemies carried on their brawl. The water began to churn, lap against the feet of the statues, and whenever the fight took to the water, the presence of the malevolent chakra surrounding Naruto, it began to boil. In response to this, the cloud cover began to thicken and darken as the excessive heat began to evaporate, condense and then descend as rain. Sasuke snarled and the curse mark erupted over his body, wings erupting out his back, and he began to channel his chakra into his hand. The chakra erupted into life in the telltale familiar bird chirping mass of lightning. The only difference was the fact that this one was turning dark. Naruto snarled and held his hand out, his red chakra shroud billowed, and a grotesque hand-tail-like protrusion manifested, and like the previous time, chakra began to flow, compress and rotate. Hari and Kakashi, we cannot allow you to get to the weapon or the Uchiha. They are our orders. Well, order this. Thundered Hari as he activated a shunshin, reappearing in front of the first root shinobi, and buried his sword into the shinobi's gut. You're in our way. You're our enemy. Jinten. Genkai Hikuri no Jutsu. Particle style. Atomic dismantling, a cube of chakra exploded from Hari's curved steeple fingers in the shape of a cylinder. The chakra erupted into a drill-like shape, slamming into and completely destroying 12 root nin and 5 trees. Kakashi suddenly found a tag on his back, glowing seal. Almighty push. Called Hari as he activated it. Kakashi jumped forwards and suddenly found himself soaring through the air unopposed. He went to help his comrade, but found Hari already amongst the root nin. As effective as they might be for completing the mission and knowing the skills of their enemies, no one was ever really prepared for the Hellsword of Konoha. Right now he lived up to the name, the seals on his sword ablaze with a crimson light and flames erupting on the edge of the swing. Uchiha no Jutsu. Pakin. Kakashi called, slamming his hand on what appeared to an armor. A leg. Seriously, Kakashi? A leg? We're not cannibals. Said the pug Ninken on appearance. A menace. Pakin. I need your help. Sasuke and Naruto are beating the crap out of one another. Come on, this way. Should have summoned me earlier. Naruto, Sasuke, I hope I do not fail you again. Kakashi said to himself. As he began to lengthen his stride, his training in the Anbu came back to him. As the smell got more and more intense, he could feel the chakra. Suddenly the area in front of him illuminated a massive purple orb of solid chakra. They must have collided their most potent techniques. Kakashi stated, his jaw dropped. Kamen. Kai. The Cyclopean shinobi murmured and chakra surged through him and he charged towards the center of the dissipating orb of chakra. Kakashi erupted from the forest in a shroud of green chakra and he skidded in a three-point landing, his leg folded and he rolled. He jumped up again and with another bound found himself just behind the immense stone bust of Senju Hashirama. He sniffed, the chakra was undoubtedly thick. It smelt like a cooked jutsu. A cooked jutsu was a technique that had been overloaded with chakra and then released. Kakashi grinned, some of the more advanced Kaiten jutsu came from cooking the basics. The two that came to mind were the Goka Mikyaku and Masitsu, both stemmed from the basic Kaiten. Kakaku no jutsu. Kakashi ran forwards, he had failed Obito and Minato. He wasn't going to fail again. He jumped over the head and landed in what had been the free-flowing river. The river had evaporated and as he looked around he saw the telltale markings of the Chidori and on the other side markings of the Rasengan. Oh no Sasuke, Naruto. Kakashi spawned 3 shadow clones and they began to search. It didn't take him long as there on the side of the former river by Madara's statue was Naruto. The black version of the orange jumpsuit was in tatters and around his neck were the telltale signs of a neckbreaker drop and in his chest was a definitive slow healing hole. Kakashi chuckled grimly, there had most definitely been a fight and here it proved who had won. Kakashi doubted Sasuke had gotten out of the fight completely unscathed. Forest. Hari sheathed his sword as the last Na operative fell to the floor headless. The forest or rather the great big pile of nothing of where the forest used to be more accurate, wasn't much more than a wasteland. Hari grinned particle style, eat your heart out. Now let's grab the wayward genin and go home. Vo. Kakashi pulled out a package of bandages and set about trying to save his little brother. He would fully admit by age 6 he was 7 shades of psychologically fucked, maybe earlier. He didn't fully know. His mother died when he was 2 and then his father committed suicide when he was 5, followed by 2 years on his own before Kushina more or less kicked his door down and forced him at sword point into Minato and her apartment. Then he became Minato's apprentice and soon enough Minato became the father figure he needed and Kushina, well, she was an amalgamation of a mother and sister figure. He had thrived under their undivided attention, he had been described as a prodigy and he was for shinobi arts. Kakashi sighed, he still didn't have a grip on social norms. He was a shinobi, they were the epitome of not normal. Hell, take Guy for an example, he ran around in a dark green leotard with offendingly bright orange leg warmers that concealed a fuck ton of weight, imperial and metric boards were still debating the complete mass. He hadn't fully appreciated his genin teammates he had been given when he had been made a chunin. Kakashi sighed, now everyone bar Naruto was dead, not today Naruto. Not today, not now. Kakashi said to himself as he stood up and placed Naruto tenderly in his arms. He sealed away Sasuke's forehead protector and he jumped up the cliff and headed back to Konoha. Kakashi. Where's Oshid? Tsunade's gonna flip, as are the council. Hari commented. Kakashi looked at him, do you have a plan? Or at some aspect of one? Hari nodded, we're going to need to act fast. I'll stall the elders. Particularly Danzo and hopefully he'll unleash more of his root and rot. Kakashi nodded and the 3 shinobi headed back to Konoha. Hospital Shizune's hands were glowing green and her face harrowed as she barked at another mednin to attach another nutrient mix and saline drip to one Akimichi Choji. Currently her hands were near the chest cavity of one Hyuga Niji. Shizune-sama, we have another clan child. Inuzuka Kiba. Alongside his Ninkin. Triage status. Shizune barked. Green or amber. Broken ribs, lung and diaphragm cuts and slight hemorrhaging. Nothing too serious and potentially a concussion. Let him on a crash cart and send his Ninkin to the clan. They know how to stick broken Ninkin back together again. Someone please check that he isn't dying by drowning in his own blood. Suddenly her jutsu faltered. Shit. Medics. I'm not losing this one. Shouted Shizune as she realized her jutsu reserves had hit rock bottom and she was about to crash from exhaustion and exertion. Shosen no jutsu. A voice boomed and Shizune didn't even need to look as her guardian, teacher and friend had stormed into the hospital. Now that she listened, she could hear the faint sounds of people complaining. How many walls, doors and people are injured? 2 walls and a door. 3 concussions to medical nin. Where's Uzumaki Naruto and Rock Lee? Naruto-kun hasn't returned yet. Rock Lee has returned with a crippling hangover and some stress fractures, he shall make a full recovery. Outside Konoha gates, Kakashi, run. Ordered Hari as they hit the gates at a low Jonin level run. Kakashi grunted and then and there displayed what he had learnt at the feet of the Yondaime. He pulled Naruto into his chest, crossed his hands so his thumbs were in line pointing up and down respectively, turned them so the palms were touching, drew them apart and clapped them hidden jutsu. Void step, 3 bounds. It wasn't a clan jutsu, nor was it a particularly known one. But it was a dangerous one. Void Step was an injutsu that folded space-time and a bit of reality together. It was nothing like the Hiraishin no Jutsu which involved punching a hole in the fabric of space and time, which was a clan technique. Kakashi made it to the hospital, and after flurrying his kai at the civilian medics, he was wheeled onto a cart and quickly hurried into the shinobi part of the hospital. Tsunade literally walked out of the operating theater, saw Naruto's inbound bed and single-handedly chucked it into the trauma room through the wall. If he's like Aba-chan, he'll be fine. She quickly sent out explicit instructions for various medical supplies. Soon enough Naruto had been stabilized and Tsunade stalked out send for Nara Shikamaru. I need his report and I need to head off those old wingbats of sensei's advisors. No need Tsunade-sama, Hari-san is running interference. I last saw him summoning cage buncheons. Tsunade nodded, she had a feeling she knew why the Izuki male would be running interference. The elders were going to try something, but Hari would be equally doing something. Tsunade sighed, she had work to do. She headed for the council chambers, 16 Anbu following her, and as she headed towards the tower, the Anbu began to peel off and flickered across the village. They ran through secret walls, secret doors, over the rooftops, through the tunnels, and those who belonged to a clan took more secret passageways and eventually found themselves announcing to the clan heads to meet in the council chambers. Higurashi weapons. Meanwhile, Hari had slid into the back of Higurashi supplies and opened up a concealed shelf and headed into the basement. Thank you, you Higurashis, for keeping this stuff hidden. He was so absorbed in getting the information when he heard a pattering of footsteps occur behind him. Who are you? What do you want? Hari sighed and he turned around. Who are you? Higurashi Tenten. My parents run and own this store. Hari still had his back turned to her, smiled. Yuzuki Hari, I'm an old genin teammate of your mother and father. With that he turned around and they've been hiding stuff for me. Tenten cocked her head. What? It's Hari began. That or you don't know Tenten. Tenten turned around to find her parents behind them. Dusan. Ka-chan. Tetsu, Mabuki. Been a long time. Hari replied with a manic grin as he revealed several dozen documents. Including a letter. Hari, we heard that you had been reinstated, so it's that time. Hari nodded. I've got everything I need. My last will and testament is here. He gestured to one of the pouches on his vest. I just need you to sign it and witness it and submit it to Lady Hokage. I've also left a letter to Tenten. Tenten stared at him. Why? What? Hari sighed. It's not up to me, it's up to your parents. Tetsu sighed. Hari, we were on your genin team. You never ran from a thing. When the war kicked off you didn't run from the explosion core, the Jinchuriki, you didn't even flinch at the 1000 death fight when you saw the Yondaime in full flow. Now. Hari, face up to it. We understand and Tenten will as well. She's old enough. But is she strong enough? Hari asked. Enough. Hari-san, please explain what is going on. Demanded Tenten. Hari sighed. You're not the Higurashi's natural-born child. You were adopted, you're my daughter. You were born on my last infiltration mission into Iwagakure no Sado. Tenten stared at him. I'm your daughter. Why didn't O right? Infiltrator. Cut off from allied support. Enemies, plus you're a war veteran and in the bingo book. Tenten stared at her father, eyes glassing up. Why didn't you raise me? Why didn't you at least look after me if you couldn't raise me? Did you not love me? Tenten's last question triggered something, and suddenly her body jerked ramrod straight as pure Kai was emitted from her newfound father. I couldn't raise you because of internal threats and vendettas against me, mainly due to the fact that I pissed off Shimura Danzo and de facto Midokado Himura and Udateen Kaheru. I managed to complete my mission and get you out of Iowa and back to Konoha. They expected me to sacrifice myself and try and cripple Iowa. Tenten could only stare. There's something else. Hari nodded. It's an S-rank secret, but since I'm almost certain that I'm going to my death, I'll tell you. Uzumaki Naruto is the son of Namikaze Minato and Namikaze Kushina ni Uzumaki and the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Kitsune. The same fox that attacked the village some 12-13 years ago. Tenten looked at her newfound father with shock. Hari-san, this is a lot to take in. Hari let out a barking laugh. I know. Tenten, in the words of the Yondaime Hokage back when he was but a jonin and he observed me training with Kushina sensei, family isn't blood.